We are live with your WrestleMania 39 Night 2 post show. I am John Pollock along with Wai Ting. And Wai, it has been quite the weekend and we are almost at the end of it. I'm really looking forward to a day off on Monday.
It will never end. We are minutes, I would say, from possibly the biggest news day in the history of this company. And we haven't even reviewed WrestleMania yet. This could be a really, really big day.
Yes, because WrestleMania is not the biggest story that we're going to be talking about today. Instead, we are going to bring in our own Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics, because tonight it looks like everyone is acknowledging one person, and that is reporter Alex Sherman with CNBC, the man who has, as you can see at the top of Alex Sherman's Twitter, has acknowledged that
he has stolen the show.
He has stolen the show at WrestleMania on WWE's big weekend.
Not since Rick Steamboat and Randy Savage has someone stolen the show at WrestleMania, such as Alex Sherman of CNBC has this afternoon.
So I'm just going to read a portion from Alex Sherman's report this over at CNBC that came out this afternoon. And his report states that Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Entertainment is in advanced talks to be sold to Ari Emanuel's Endeavor Group, the parent company of UFC, according to people familiar with the matter. A deal could be announced as soon as Monday. UFC and WWE are expected to form a new publicly traded company as part of the agreement, according to the people who declined to be named due to the confidential nature of the discussions. Endeavor is slated to own 51% of the new combat sports and entertainment company, while WWE shareholders would get 49%, according to the people. The Endeavor deal gives WWE an enterprise value of $9.3 billion, they said. Emanuel, a media executive, is expected to act as chief executive of both Endeavor and the new company. McMahon, likewise, is expected to be executive chairman, while Endeavor president Mark Shapiro will also work in the same role at the new company. Dana White will remain as president of UFC, while WWE CEO Nick Khan will serve as president of the wrestling business. So those are kind of the overarching thoughts. There have been subsequent stories from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal that have essentially reported the same thing. I think one of them had stated they're expecting it this week, the other Monday. So it is very imminent, it would appear, Brandon, that this will be coming down. And I think that this is, when we were looking at the potential buyers, I think that Endeavor you could make a lot of arguments for, but this was one that I think at the same time you had kind of taken the public stance of Ari Emanuel that this was not something they were so much kicking the tires at, when they must have been, obviously.
Ari Emanuel made it clear that they weren't going to take on more debt. Mm-hmm. And what we're learning here, for those of us not familiar with the Reverse Morris Trust, which I don't think was the finish of the match tonight, the main event tonight, but doing a Reverse Morris Trust will allow Endeavor somehow to minimize their debt. This is very complicated, not something I'm prepared to explain in detail, and I feel like I'm explaining it reliably. But basically, Endeavor in 2016 bought UFC, right? They bought it for, what was it, $5 billion at the time?
It was about $4 billion.
Anyway, They bought it for a lot of money, and they're still paying down that debt. What they propose to do here, if this comes to fruition, is to pull UFC out of Endeavor and leave behind Endeavor the streaming company, the talent agency, professional bull riding, whatever else goes along with Endeavor. Take UFC out of it and put UFC together with WWE. In that process, they would be able to separate some of their debt. If they do a Reverse Morris Trust where Endeavor takes 51% of the new company that is UFC and WWE together, they can do it tax-free. So we have reports in here in the CNBC article about the valuations that UFC has, $12 billion, WWE $9 billion, which is way over what the stock market would indicate. Brandon Ross has tweeted, and I trust that he knows what he's talking about, that those valuations don't really matter. The market, when this becomes a publicly traded company, assuming that it does, the market will determine what the market value of this new company is. And these numbers that we see here won't matter as much. What does matter is that it's 51% Endeavor, 49% WWE. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of questions, including what happens to Vince's preferred shares and his voting power and all that, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's obviously like so many questions to this. And, in a nutshell, again, not an expert either when it comes to a reverse Morris trust that we're all going to be navigating here. Essentially, this is a pretty brilliant tax strategy, essentially, that it can actually alleviate some of Endeavor's debt, which we can get into more. But sort of just the big picture of all of this, Brandon, I mean, presuming that this goes through, and it seems this is only a question of if and not, or sorry, of when and not if, like this is obviously a transformative deal for both the UFC and WWE. And when you look at it, I mean, this, as we had stated, Endeavor has this experience now of running the UFC for 6.5 years. And there could be a lot of synergy here with a company like a WWE. The fact that Nick Khan is attached to this deal. Vince McMahon seems that, I mean, he continues to just amaze me at how he has played all of this from last summer to this comeback, swooping in back to his executive chairman role. And in essence, like, we don't know what exactly his day-to-day duties will be, but from these reports, like, it would seem like he will be the number 2 guy underneath Ari Emanuel in this newly formed company.
Yeah, I guess we could ask Alex Sherman, but my reading of the article is that the newly formed company would be run by Ari Emanuel, who we see on the screen there. He would be the chief officer of the new company as well as the remaining Endeavor company. He would run it along with the current president of Endeavor, Mark Shapiro, and Vince McMahon would be the executive chairman of the new UFC WWE company, is how I'm reading the article on CNBC. And then Dana White would continue to run UFC. He would be the chief officer of UFC, which is a subsidiary of this new company, and Nick Khan would be the president of WWE. So it puts Vince McMahon on the same level, I suppose, as Mark Shapiro and to some extent Ari Emanuel.
And so does this mean Vince would theoretically be in charge of the UFC above Dana?
I guess he would be above Dana, is how I read it, yeah.
Wow.
I don't know that he would have a lot to do with UFC, but yeah,
Whatever executive chairman might mean in this instance, right?
It still remains to be seen, like, what kind of power Vince McMahon is going to have. Obviously, when you're looking at something of a purchase of this amount, the immediate assumption is that there is going to be a lot of redundancy between these companies. And when you're taking on such a gigantic cost, like as we lived through with the UFC being purchased by Endeavor, like they went through the UFC and there were tons of cuts. There were people there that were assumed to have lifetime jobs that no longer had lifetime jobs. And that is one of the things we looked at here, is that of one of these media companies buying WWE, you would have that. That was one of the thoughts with the Saudi investment fund, is that, listen, they have no infrastructure to run such a company, that you would think you would want to keep that WWE system in place. Again, that's just one of hundreds of questions that you would associate with this, but it will be a completely different company under this, and there will be some redundancy for sure when you're merging these.
To some extent, if you're taking UFC out of Endeavor, maybe there's a lot of services that UFC would no longer have access to since it's being pulled out of Endeavor, that might minimize the redundancies. Nonetheless, I think there still will be, which means layoffs. Something else that I've had explained to me tonight is that because this is an all-stock deal, employees who have restricted stock units, those may end up vesting immediately upon this deal being complete. So basically, if you have stock awards that you have to wait until you can cash them out, they may cash out sooner than expected. So that might happen. And we could, people have been asking me, and I've been saying we could see an 8K filing as early as tomorrow morning before the stock market opens, but I have no sense of how fast this is going to happen. The CNBC article says as early as Monday, so as early as tomorrow. Interesting too that they're doing this deal before TV rights are done, which is kind of what certainly when the Disneys and the Comcasts were in this conversation about who might acquire WWE. The assumption was that a company transaction or company sale would happen first, and then WWE would go on and do its renewals for Raw and SmackDown. This is a company, Endeavor, that's merging with WWE, and they don't have networks of their own that they're going to put Raw and SmackDown on, obviously. So they're going to presumably together. This is something that, you know, the analysts have talked about. Oh, wow, what a dream team it would be if you had Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan to go and shop the TV rights. And that should result in a better deal, if anything, for Raw and SmackDown, as well as UFC. So
the ramifications of, you know, a possible merger between WWE and UFC are so immense. You know, obviously, workers' rights and the topic of unionization is something that's brought up often when it comes to both of these things. How would a major conglomerate of the two biggest entities in combat sports, what would that mean for, you know, WWE's definitions of independent contractors, or whatever the UFC defines its fighters as?
I would think until, I mean, we could talk to Lucas Middlebrook about it as we have recently. I would think until workers try to do something about it, nothing's going to change, or unless there's some sort of class action lawsuit. I know that there's the Kung Lee lawsuit that has been ongoing for years. I don't know that that's going to resolve in a major difference for workers, but it does put together two companies that have a lot in common in that respect, in that they have workers, talent who are perhaps misclassified. I would say in the case of WWE, which I understand a lot better, clearly misclassified, and no union. And there's the big controversy around UFC fighters. If you compare them to a lot of other pro sports, they're getting a very small percentage of the revenue. And similar for WWE, we could get into a larger debate, though, about whether that's appropriate or not.
Yeah, and we will try to relay any notes that come out of the press conference tonight, in particular Paul Levesque, which is one of many people you would look at as, you know, very, very interesting to see what his role is going to be. And even preceding the sale, like, listen, Vince McMahon was there in LA over the weekend. It sounded like, you know, he was a bit more vocal over this weekend. And certainly there is that assumption of like where Vince McMahon is going to land in terms of day to day with WWE and post WrestleMania. Like, what kind of involvement will he have? And with this sale, ultimately where Paul Levesque lands.
Even when it comes to like the ethics of like the company going forward, obviously, I mean, people are rightfully maybe very critical of, like, you know, where Dana White and the UFC stands there, but Ari Emanuel has, you know, famously protested against the Saudi deal, giving money back, you know, after making a deal. Now, how does this affect WWE's relationship with Saudi Arabia going forward?
I mean, John, does UFC do business with the Saudi government though still?
Not with the Saudi government, but in Abu Dhabi, at one point, the Abu Dhabi-based Flash Entertainment actually had a minority stake in the UFC that ended up being bought after the Endeavor sale. But
there's certainly nothing like a UFC show where they go to Saudi Arabia and get millions.
Not to Saudi Arabia, no, okay. No. So it's a worthwhile question, and it's a huge amount of revenue for WWE. And you're looking at something that I don't think they're going to be looking at any way to, you know, use a moral compass to cut off revenue. Like, I would think that would go uninterrupted, but it's a worthwhile question because Ari Emanuel was sort of an outlier in that whole Jamal Khashoggi fallout, where this guy put his money where his mouth is. And if you read, I think it was a New Yorker profile on him, like, was somewhat fearful of his life. Like, he had like bodyguards around him, like during this time, that it was, you know, there was concern back in 2018, 2019, when that was sort of at its peak in terms of this being a concern that he actually took action with. In terms of just in hindsight, Brandon, do you go and look back at any of Nick Khan's appearances? Do they read any differently to you now? Do you think that it was almost, do you see this as any kind of tie-in with sort of a much more public front that Nick Khan was taking, just in terms of, you know, we looked at a lot of these media appearances as sort of just dressing up the company, going into its biggest show. But you have to imagine that this sale, it was a matter of just crossing T's and dotting I's.
Yeah, I would think, you know, we had the report on CNBC with David Faber earlier in the week where he talked about robust interest. Who knows what his sourcing was on it, but it appears to have, I don't know if it was because something was about to happen with Endeavor and that was information that he got a hold of, but there looks to be credibility to that. And it wasn't just pure hype as I suspected it might be. Yeah, it looks like, you know, this is probably going to happen. And maybe something even happened, at the stadium where people were having conversations. I've asked some people who I knew were there and might have ran into people like potential suitors and people like that, and I didn't hear that there was strong Endeavor presence. It's not like I heard that like Ari Emanuel was there talking to Nick Khan or something. So, but who knows? Maybe they're
this had to be the dominant topic of the night among the the key personnel that Nick Khan had mentioned. Like, we're going to be there this weekend, and the idea of talking to their incumbents. Like, obviously, this is it's breaking on the within hours of their biggest money show in history. So it's the timing of all of this. It does make a whole lot of sense, and I noted it earlier today, but it very much draws me back to UFC 200, which was the biggest show in UFC's history in terms of its promotion. And coming out of that, it was just like that was imminent, that the sale was coming, and it just came days after that big event in Las Vegas as well.
And something else we could see coming out of this, if UFC and WWE do end up being a merged company, we could see weekends where there's a Saturday UFC fight and a Sunday WWE event, perhaps even in the same venue or something like that. So that's something that makes a lot of sense.
There's a ton of synergy when it comes to who they're bringing out for these tryouts, and you have the Performance Center and the Performance Institute. I mean, there's a lot that you can glean from. And I think, honestly, the idea of Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan being together, I think that's going to excite a lot of people on Wall Street. Just the idea of these, not just the next set of television deals for WWE, but when UFC's deals come around, like, you have Nick Khan in your house that might be the guy that is out there shopping UFC television deals on top of it. I think that is going to certainly raise a lot of interest just on both ends of the company.
Yeah,
but
and UFC's deal with ESPN will expire in 2025, I understand.
Yes, that's
I looked that up today.
Is not that far away that they have. And when you look at their involvement with ESPN Plus, like, they have been a huge impact on that streaming service on top of it. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I guess we're just waiting, and there could be a brand new WWE as of Monday, and we very well may be chatting with you at some point on Monday, Brandon. I think that this is just it would seem very likely that Monday this could be breaking.
Yeah, I mean, I've said before, I expected there to be maybe some kind of bidding process like we saw for Manchester United, but that's not the way this is looking. So I might get an email. Those of us who have subscribed to the email alerts on W's investor relations website might get an email tomorrow morning, or maybe later in the day on Monday. We'll see, and we'll find out what we learn.
There's just wanted to plug, WrestleNomics on YouTube. There's a great chat right now with Brandon and MJ from NJ, who talked about this as it broke earlier today. So I encourage everybody to go and check that out.
Yeah, please do.
And Brandon, we will. Any thoughts on the main event outcome tonight of WrestleMania?
I was shocked. I thought for sure Cody was winning. Paul Levesque is spitting out numbers. I'm trying to read the closed captioning right now. But no, I predicted all of the winners ahead of time. I went through each match. I was correct on every one of them. I correctly predicted the winner of every match of this year's WrestleMania, except for the last match.
Here's one note we can end on. So Andrew Thompson texting me this. So Nick Hausman asked Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns about the WWE sale report. Reigns didn't give much of an answer, but Heyman said, quote, that he has a problem with starting things at press conferences.
Was that
very nice?
Kind of a clever answer there from Paul Heyman. So very smart on his part, I guess. Brandon, thanks a lot for staying up late with us. And maybe we will be chatting with you on Monday when if I have to send out the WrestleNomics signal.
I think I have some busy days ahead of me. Talk to you next time.
Thanks a lot, Brandon.
Bye.
So there we have it. That is the latest. There's not a whole lot more that we can go into. Obviously, this is a massive story that appears just imminent, that it will be breaking. Wade, just some of your overall thoughts, just the news and the fact that it is Endeavor that looks to be the one that is going to be purchasing the company.
Well, I think for a lot of wrestling fans and maybe a lot of wrestlers that are currently employed by the WWE, this is a bit of a relief knowing that, the potential and at one point the strong, overwhelming favorite for a purchaser would have been the public investment fund from Saudi Arabia. So in that sense, this
depends who you are. I would never say that a sale is a relief. I understand what you're saying, but
compared to the I guess the idea of it, yeah, a lot of people
which
could
I'd
potentially
also
lose their jobs after this. Yes,
I would also wonder like how many would have that aversion, that it was owned by something that maybe would be hands off and you just run the company as is. I mean, you can't assume everyone has that sort of moral standpoint of the ownership and such, but it's the unknown. You never want to be going into something that you don't know the outcome of, and nobody can be predicting what this new company will look like in 18 months. Like it's going to be massive changes. Like it is literally the changing of a company. It's creating a whole new company that will be the umbrella of WWE and UFC underneath.
yeah. But hey, man, our whole lives we've had one owner, one person in control of the WWE, and that was Vince McMahon. And that's not going to be the case. I mean, he's still going to have a great deal of power, but he's not going to be the one at the top now. So I'm very curious, ethically, how does this company change? Its attachment to the UFC really more than doubles its size, and does it legitimize professional wrestling in a different way? USADA testing, things like the wellness policy, like do these things somehow interact with each other? And just how will this affect professional wrestling as a whole? Will it give it added legitimization and credibility that it didn't have before? Will it put a bigger microscope on it? Or will it just shelter itself, with the protection of a bigger company?
It's a great question. Like to me, the idea would not be to just keep these two entities separate and there's no crossover in terms of promotion, in terms of resources, and inevitably, like you're going to have staffs that are going to be in charge of, there is going to be some redundancy that always comes with these types of sales, where there will be people that will very likely lose jobs as a result of this. Like that is the reality of giant purchases like this.
And of course, one of the big topics that maybe, is of interest to our audience is, well, what happens with the pay-per-view model?
Dude, I cannot tell you how many, that was the first thing when I got comments.
How does this affect me? Am I going to have to pay more money for
these shows? First and foremost, like until that deal is up, that's a Peacock decision. Now, it is something that Nick Khan flat out said we would be open to it, but also put out the hypothetical if we were offered 5x. I don't think it's just a game changer that instantly they snap their fingers. And like you have to remember that, yeah, you would love for every one of your pay-per-view events to generate X amount of dollars on top of what you are, but you have now conditioned an audience going back to 2014 that you're either getting these shows for free or at most topping out at $9.99 for a month. And it is that the best direction? Like you are not the UFC, and it is a different mentality.
I would say a lot of the reaction and maybe a lot of our hesitancy is coming off of the initial reaction to some news like this. But AEW gets away with it, and that's professional wrestling, and it's dealing very much with the same audience. If WWE tonight wanted to charge, I don't know, $50, $60
listen,
for this WrestleMania,
I've never said that. I, from the very beginning, didn't think WrestleMania should have been lumped in with the network. I understand why they did it to get the network off the ground, but to me, that is the one show that you're right. Like tonight's show would have done really well on pay-per-view. And I know from a fan perspective, you don't want to hear that you could throw a $60 price tag on this. But the reality is WrestleMania is the event. You could do that. You would get some friction, but ultimately I think that you would, especially if it was, hey, $75 for 2 nights of WrestleMania. I think most people would look at that as, okay, it's not what it was before, but in the end, are you going to buy it? You'd lose some people. You would. But ultimately it would be a big generator, I feel, on pay-per-view. I can't say the other pay-per-views, and that would include a Royal Rumble at this point. I don't know if you would go beyond that, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because they are only in year 3 of this 5-year deal with Peacock at this point. So let's get into WrestleMania here, our second story of the night. So the updated numbers from WrestleTix had night one at 67,103. So a little more than what we had stated last night. And then night two, this was as of several hours before the show, 67,550. So their total was 134,441. And let's just skip to what WWE did announce on the show, which was, again, The Miz and Snoop Dogg coming out and announcing 81,395 for night two and a two-night total of 161,892. So adding about roughly 25,000 people to the total for the two nights.
Right. Hey, man, a lot of heartbeats. Again, legitimately, they sold more for night two than night one.
Yes. If these are the final tickets distributed, it was about 447 more tickets for night number two. I mean, you're talking a very small margin.
Right. But somehow they managed to cram even more people into those suites, I'm guessing. But yeah, okay. I don't know. Is this what did they really want to achieve? Like beating, like what is it? The NC, the college stuff, or what was the big thing that they were touting?
I think they were. It was some interview where they mentioned like what the final four or the final four just drew. Not in the same building, but nonetheless. So one thing to note though is that when we went into this two-night experiment, that was the big concern was, are you going to be able to draw this on two nights? And when they announced two nights for AT&T Stadium, that was the one last year where you were like, damn, that's a big ask of your people. I mean, the answer is yes. They can do really well on these two nights. You're not talking about replicating the same amount of costs because you're not traveling to a different city for the second night and doing setup and tear down. It's one night. I'm sure that they're getting tremendous incentives from the host state, the host city to do these events. That this has turned into a great idea that they came up with. And I don't sense too much resistance to the two nights from people.
Well, the shows have been better. I think we can almost all say. Like, I mean, this show crammed into last night's show would have been just not a very good experience. As good as the wrestling was, when you're reaching
7.5 hours spread out over two nights does not feel that bad.
Yeah. And so I think the audience is happy about it. Even it makes it more of a destination event, something maybe worth traveling to, even for people that are, already spending those major costs. And they have really great storylines this year, two at least really hot, maybe even three hot enough storylines that they can spread across two nights. Is that always going to be the case every single year? Remains to be seen, but that is going to be the challenge now.
Jimmy Allen performed America the Beautiful, and then we had another Kevin Hart Open about cold as balls, and then we had highlights of night one, and this is the sequel where everyone wants more of everything. So The Miz and Snoop Dogg open up the show, and our first matchup is Omos, accompanied by MVP, taking on Brock Lesnar. And as I say that these shows have felt shorter, this match feels like it happened like 3 days ago.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having to. Here we go. Yes, I know what you mean, John. Like, do you remember the Kingo versus Commander? I mean, like we lived, I feel like an entire month's worth of professional wrestling in a few days here. So, yeah, this felt like a while ago to me.
So Omos and Brock Lesnar, it kind of followed the formula of John Cena and Austin Theory. It was a super basic match, but I thought this was the better opener than night one, dude. I thought this was so simple. Like, what can Omos do? Very little. So this is Brock.
Hold on a second, John. I understand that's the qualification. Should you not be looking at a full-time Hollywood actor in a John Cena the same way? Somebody who's extremely limited right now with he could liably do.
I have higher expectations of John Cena than Omos. Yes.
Yeah, but even knowing how much is on the line for him with his health and in these big productions.
Okay, I'm not the one booking him on the show. I'm the consumer that's watching this, and it's like Is that part of the advertising? Hey guys, tune in for John Cena. He can't do much.
So it's because you've seen John Cena in better matches and you have not seen Omos in better matches that you have that expectation.
I have a lot lower expectations for Omos, yes. And I think that and I think honestly, like the purpose of John Cena, yes, it was to draw attention to this show, but it was also to make Austin Theory. And I don't think anyone's thinking about Austin Theory after these 2 nights.
I would say the same about this match, actually. Like, who did this match actually
benefit? It didn't make anyone, but I'm saying as a self-contained match, and you can argue that point about, like,
Cena
I don't know.
Theory. Well, okay, Cena Theory had different names for sure. Yeah, for Austin Theory. But
listen, I'm not going to argue this was a great match. This was the worst match on the show, and it was.
No, it was not, because we saw more wrestling later.
I don't count the Mrs. matches on either of these nights, but I understand what you're meaning. So, like, it was 5 minutes, and it was Lesnar has to lift this big guy up, and this crowd was into that story, and that was it. And dude, it was. For the 5 minutes it had, dude, the bear hugs, like this was just Lesnar had to sell. And Omos, it was just, he hit a choke slam. And then Lesnar, he can barely get Omos over for a German suplex when he finally hits it. But then he falls with 2 more Germans. And dude, the place goes nuts. He lifts him up for the F5, but his back gives out. And then the tree slam gets countered, lifts him up for the F5, and he pins him in 4 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, certainly you could look at this, and to me, I don't know how much further you go with Omos. Like, now he's been beaten, and my only thought is that you have a disgruntled Lashley who was left off this card, and you can reform the Hurt Business with Omos and Lashley as the principals with MVP, and that's his next direction. And he's sort of secondary to Lashley, but it gives them something like they're both recovering from their treatment at WrestleMania. But honestly, like the Omos experiment, to me, it was building up to some guy that can finally beat him, and now you've done it. And they chose to do it with Brock.
Yeah, I mean, unlike the Theory match, I don't think this was ever about building Omos. I think this was simply, something to give a spectacle to the audience, something for Brock Lesnar to, I don't know, showcase himself with.
This was a lot lower stakes, I feel.
Yeah, and I like your idea. I mean, obviously, what is it? Brock and Bobby Lashley still have unfinished business, and I think having an Omos attached to a Bobby Lashley would maybe reignite some level of interest in that particular feud.
But you could do in Puerto Rico, you could do it in Saudi Arabia. Like you would assume that. As much as Brock is talking about, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around. I mean, I don't think he's winning this match if they don't have his next match set up.
Right, but I thought the aim of this match, from maybe an attraction perspective, was similar to the Theory Cena match, in that you wanted somebody that was recognizable as close to the top of the broadcast as possible, because you're getting a lot of people on Peacock, a lot of viewers that aren't watching professional wrestling other than this particular night, wanting to see a familiar face in the first match of the show. And I thought Cena provided that. I thought Lesnar provided that.
But let me couch it this way for the first match. I was very harsh on this match. It was just, to me, it was just very dull. It was just a very
Cena in Theory, you mean? Yeah.
Cena in Theory, yes. Okay. It was just a very dull performance. But listen, I'm talking about how the crowd got into this. The crowd got into Cena in Theory too. So if that is your barometer of like crowd engagement, then like that works. But to me, it was not an impactful match. And I thought in both of these cases, these were among the weakest matches of the weekend for WrestleMania. But we will see where this goes afterwards. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler against Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, and Natalya and Shotzi. And they are just racing through these entrances. Like, the team would get halfway down the ramp and boom, we just go to the long shot and the next team is out. Rousey and Baszler come out in judo gis. Natalya has a portion of her hair dyed green for her allegiance to Shotzi. And so Chelsea Green starts off, she goes for a missile drop kick that Raquel just stands and no-sells. And Raquel delivers a big power bomb to Baszler and then challenges Rousey to enter the ring, but Green and Deville jump her. And we got a few dives to the floor, including Shotzi with a suicide dive through the legs of Natalya. and Green goes to pose to the crowd before hitting her high cross to the floor. Deville then takes out Raquel's knee and kicks it out. Raquel gets sent to the floor. There's a heart attack on Deville, and then Natalya does her double sharpshooter spot on Green and Deville, which is broken up by Liv Morgan. And Shotzi gets in a tiger suplex. Liv hits a code breaker and then the Oblivion, but Shayna is the legal woman. And Shayna comes in and her boot has been removed. And the announcers had no idea what happened.
Me neither. I mean, might have been a spot on the floor, but like part of me had wondered if like she might have hurt herself because like she was.
That's what I thought. Like maybe she rolled
up
her ankle or something because they never showed her. Like she was there, I think, like catching someone for the high cross. And that was the last we saw her until she gets into the ring with her boot off. So hopefully it was something minor. And Rousey tags in, and Rousey was pretty limited in this match, but not to the extent that you would say she was like totally hidden, but they kept it to a minimum with her. And she grabs Shotzi's arm, puts on the arm bar, and wins in 8:23. So it turns out that Ronda Rousey's Instagram post did not upset the octogenarians, and she was booked to go over here.
Yeah, I guess so. She might be in familiar territory if this merger happens, right?
Could be in great standing. But yeah.
I thought this was the coldest match of the two nights. Very minimal reaction to a lot. And this was a crowd that was very hot until the end of this particular weekend. I
mean, you had two makeshift teams, and that's maybe being charitable to Raquel and Liv Morgan as some like seasoned tag team together. Like Rousey and Baszler were your only real team in this. I think the outcome was like the only drama was like if Ronda was going to be punished because of an Instagram post.
Yeah, and I don't know how many people would have even thought, at that wavelength. I mean, to me, it's very much like the men's tag team 4-way showcase match where you have a pretty cold division with not a lot of storyline devoted to the performers involved, and just like no stakes whatsoever. But whereas last night's tag team showcase overcame all of that with incredible action, this did not approach those in-ring levels at all. I didn't think there was much creativity put in the layout of this match. There was just not really much of a feeling of specialness attached to this match like we had last night. So there are some limited performers here in Ronda Rousey, of course, but man, even beyond that, I just didn't see much here. So if I had to pick a worse match, or at least my least favorite match of the ones that were announced, it might be this one.
Yeah, I thought this was underwhelming. It was a cold match going in, but it's going to get the natural comparison to the showcase match from the night before. And they certainly overcame. It was not a hot build up for that match either. They recap Bobby Lashley winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on Friday. And they introduce Bobby Lashley, and he comes out lugging this trophy. And he comes out onto the stage and he just poses with it, and we just fade to black. That was it. That was Bobby Lashley's WrestleMania involvement.
No angle, yeah, and I believe he continued to tweet about it. So, I mean, I'm thinking we get him complaining maybe tomorrow on Raw or something like that.
This does lead to a natural, if you go with the Hurt Business or just an angle coming out of this, I'm sure they're going to rely upon it. But he ended up being the odd man out this year. And then they continued with various reaction shots from around the world. They went to Shanghai, China, and just to all different parts of the world throughout the night. Up, up, down, down. We got night 2. Fortunately, Tyler Breeze did not get the invite for night 2.
Well, you got, a lot of people are on Up, Up, Down, Down, I guess, and maybe they have to cycle through. I mean, I don't even know if all these people are a part of Up, Up, Down, Down. They just might have, needed people.
No, these were just people who were not booked on the show. We had Hit Row, Tegan Knox, Nikki Cross, Madcap Moss, our Andre the Giant winner last year. We did have Angelo Dawkins, so at least someone who did have a Mania match. And 42% of the time, Drew McIntyre wins the 3-way on 2K23.
All right. Well, good to know.
This match, let's all thank Mike's Harder Lemonade for they know how to choose them.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you had your choice of matches to sponsor, I think the one for the Harder Lemonade, they chose well. Yes.
So we had a Mike's Harder Lemonade spot with Drew and Sheamus. They conveniently left Gunther out of this ad. And Titus O'Neil is back for the second night. I didn't have much of an opinion either way on night 1. Mm-hmm. I love Titus O'Neil in this match. He was awesome. He added a lot in this match, just
He
like
did.
losing his mind. It was a bit of the Pat McAfee appeal with Titus O'Neil. I don't know if I would want to hear this guy for an entire broadcast every week, but he served his role very effectively in this match of all of them. Like, he was just losing his mind with all the chops.
I thought he provided the same for the tag team match yesterday as well. Yeah, some really real, genuine, authentic excitement. I mean, he just, came across like a fan who loved what he was seeing. Absolutely. And you needed that for this match for sure.
Call the police. Call the police. He was having the greatest time of anyone in this building, and people were having a great time during this match.
Holy sugar iced tea.
Holy sugar iced tea. Vinci and Kaiser introduced Gunther, who came out with just the most basic entrance, which perfectly fits the character. And I mean, he wouldn't have really lent himself to, coming out with like a recording artist.
I gotta say, like, it was pretty awesome seeing like Walter come out on a WrestleMania stage and feeling every part like a WrestleMania level act. Like he has been a world-class performer for a long time and got to appear on a world-class stage and completely fit the role.
When it comes to people that were outside the WWE system for so long that you just never envisioned having success in a WWE system, like people looked at Kevin Owens, like that was a big debate when he finally got signed. It was like, man, this is just not a WWE type of wrestler. I mean, dude, Walter was kind of the same. It's like, this guy is not going to be able to be the same guy in this company. And dude got himself into shape, overcame a name change, and he has flourished in this company. I'm certain that a lot of it was assisted by the creative change last year, but they already put the title on him prior to the changeover as well. And here you go. So the match begins. Gunther early on puts on a Boston Crab, and Drew just slaps him so hard and just calls him a bitch to release the submission. And then the chops begin, the symphony of chops. And these three had a gentleman's agreement that we are going to go out there and we are going to beat the hell out of one another until this crowd is just aghast at what three men are willing to do for their entertainment. And we are all going to volunteer our chests for everyone's enjoyment. Drew and Sheamus engaged in a chop 10 beats combo on Gunther on the ropes. Michael Cole is like at one point apologizing that he's laughing, but he is just he's losing his mind, as is Titus here. The commentary added a lot here. Gunther took off Sheamus's head with a lariat, and then Drew suplexes Sheamus into Gunther in the corner, hits him with the future shock and then a claymore, but Gunther ducks, shotguns Drew, and power bombs him for a 2 count. The white noise then is hit off the turnbuckle and a Celtic cross by Sheamus for a near fall. And this audience, they are now exploding for these near falls. Drew applies a choke to Sheamus, which stops a cloverleaf. And then there are knee strikes to Drew and Gunther as the crowd is just roaring for Sheamus. There's a brogue kick to Gunther, but then Drew yanks Sheamus to the floor. And Sheamus just looks at Drew like, how could you cost me this match? And they brawl on the floor. Drew busts out a Tope Con Hero. Then the Claymore gets stopped with a brogue kick. Drew McIntyre kicks out of the brogue kick. And Titus O'Neil was flipping out of his seat. Drew then ducks. He lands the Claymore. Sheamus kicks out of his finisher. There's a lariat battle. Neither Drew nor Sheamus will go down. There's another brogue kick, but Sheamus can't capitalize. When he climbs on top, Gunther returns with a splash onto both men. He powerbombs Sheamus on top of Drew and then powerbombs Drew, pinning McIntyre in 16 minutes and 36 seconds in a classic. This was amazing. I love this match so much.
It was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And I mean, I think a lot of us expected this to be really good. Drew and Sheamus have established a style. Walter and Sheamus have established a style. And when you throw the combination together, I mean, they just simply seem to amplify, their brand of like their own form of strong style. And it's made Walter into a bit more of a household name, certainly after something like this. I would definitely say he's broken out and he's fully on the map of people who watch the show. And it's elevated this IC championship to the highest level it's been in years. They had, I think, from an in-ring perspective, maybe the best match. debatable, of course, about like maybe drama and like how much you might have cared about the outcome. But in terms
This
of
was my
in-ring
match of the
content,
show.
yeah, this
Like
was
I understand the
outstanding.
drama of the main event that
Mhm.
it had, and that crowd heat was unbelievable. But man, this was my match of the show. I really hope that this goes down as one of those classics, and they've done a pretty good job of keeping Gunther and Sheamus memorable from Clash at the
Mhm.
Castle. But
Mhm.
it does tell you about nostalgia, and when a match, like, honestly, like Savage and Steamboat is revered. And dude, this was a better match by like leaps and bounds, but will it be remembered as such? And I know
Mhm.
that might be blasphemy for people to hear that, but think
Context is
about it.
everything,
It
like we
is,
hadn't
but it
seen
was
anything
also
like
at a time when you did not get matches like that in a WWF setting. So
yeah.
it was mind blowing to people. And then you watch something like this, and I just hope that it is remembered, because this was this I had really high expectations for these three
Yeah.
going in. They were exceeded. Like there were like thoughts of like Kobashi and Sasaki with like the chop battles here that
Totally.
I was going back to, and the audience, man, they were into all the near falls. It was so well done. And apparently I did see a note from people that once they were off camera, like Drew and Sheamus, I think they gave each other a hug or something like that. It was, you have to remember, I'm fairly certain 2 years ago that those two, they were really hoping to have their big match at WrestleMania. And if you remember, that ended up being the setup feud for Drew to take on Lashley at WrestleMania. And here 2 years later, they got that big WrestleMania match with Gunther involved. Honestly, this to me was like up there among like WrestleMania matches.
A classic, absolutely. And I hope to see them somehow be able to foster this particular type of style for the IC division in particular, really making a name for that belt as what they're trying to rebuild as the Workers' Championship. I really got the sense this crowd wanted to see Sheamus win by the end, because he has that ongoing story of never having won this particular championship. And
This
it's an
was one
ongoing
ending where I was ready for the chase afterwards. I was like,
yeah.
let them wait for it, because, everyone's going to get the happy moment at the end of the night. Leave the secondary title for the chase afterwards, where the guy comes up short. You can't give him everything in one night.
It was Sheamus the Mark Briscoe of this particular evening.
I couldn't help but think that in that main event tonight, that somebody watched Mark Briscoe lose in front of his children and thought, hold my beer.
Listen, we will talk about that. I look forward to it. But I think the Sheamus story is an ongoing story you can tell. But the more important project right now is Gunther. He continues to build this division and build the value of this belt. And I don't think you need to think about having Gunther lose this until you're ready to transition him into a world title contention level. And it's obviously, well, you know what? Well, with Roman still the champion, I mean, Gunther's probably not going to, compete for it anytime soon.
Can I ask you one question coming out of this?
Of course.
Sometimes it's really hard to track down a hard to find video feed. Like we know how the last match, you're trying to find that, and the video quality can get a little choppy. Do you have any advice for people that are looking for a better alternative?
I would suggest NordVPN.com/post wrestling. Now, I don't know if it'll exactly improve your video quality. I like that transition, John. I was waiting for it. I don't know if it would necessarily improve your video quality, but you might be able to watch certain things you might not be able to find elsewhere. Certainly if you're having to pirate some of these streams, which you should never do, of course.
No.
You could get it legitimately, maybe by going through a VPN. NordVPN.com/post wrestling. We want to thank our sponsors of this particular show. As I mentioned yesterday, I've been using Nord to access geo-blocked content. I use it for AEW Plus. You can watch AEW All Access if you're in Canada using a VPN, streaming it for free on tbs.com. But VPNs are also a very useful tool for those with concerns about online security, because if you do any sort of downloading of content, or if you're concerned about unwanted tracking from your advertisers, ISPs, phishing sites, hackers, a trusted VPN will mask your IP to protect your browsing. With over 5,000 servers from around the world, Nord has doubled down on keeping you safe with their new threat protection feature. So even if you download an infected file, threat protection kicks in and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. So I'm going to install this on your computer, John, very soon.
I need it.
It's basically basic hygiene for your web browsing. So get your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/postwrestling and get a huge discount off your plan plus 4 months for free right now. Completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. nordvpn.com/postwrestling. 4 months free on all plans. Let them know you found out through our code. So our thanks again for Nord for their support of Post.
When all my Twitter followers are worried about $80 WWE pay-per-views every month, they could use a 4-month free anything.
There you go.
Bianca Belair against Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship is next. And Asuka came out, and it was like a nice entrance that she had with like some people like dressed up in like Asuka's costume. And then Bianca Belair comes out, and she has sort of made a tradition now of having big WrestleMania entrances. And she was accompanied by the Divas of Compton, this children's dance group that was amazing. It was so amazing that thinking to last night with the Make-A-Wish kids, I was thinking Asuka's winning the title. It's like, how can we make people sad?
If you see a child, it means the other person's probably winning. Yeah, that's what we've learned this weekend. Tremendous entrance. Absolutely great. I mean, I think, I don't know, took advantage of like, where they were. The dancing was awesome. It made her
These
look...
kids were impressive as hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one who did like the contortionist thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
You're gonna try that? Maybe. I think you could pull that off.
I don't know. I don't think even Bray Wyatt could do that.
Great entrance.
It was a great entrance. So it starts off, and there was like this mistimed drop kick at the beginning, and Asuka still sold it going into the corner. But then they just got into this here. I thought that this was one where it just felt like they were working super hard, but it seemed like it wasn't until the end that the audience truly believed that the finish was coming. To me, it was just a lot of like near falls, and the audience was sort of just like they were enjoying the match, but I didn't get the sense like they were believing the finish was coming yet. But the story of this match was essentially that Asuka had scouted Bianca, so anytime she would go for like her handspring, it was an opening for Asuka to capitalize, and was just going for openings with her submissions. And Bianca had her power as her defense mechanism, that whatever trap she fell into, she was able to power herself out, which was a fine story. And I couldn't help but hear Michael Cole give us this great story of these two and their distinct styles. I was like, we could have gotten a lot of time on television dedicated to this. There is a story here, and I'm getting it all during the match, but for 4 weeks, it was blue goo.
I really hope, what they did with this and the response to this taught them a lesson about maybe how to build these sort of matches. You don't have to rely on any sort of like weird story, like, or crazy even promos even. Just build this on the in-ring product itself and what it will look like on the big stage. I mean, I don't think really nailed it until that final week. And I think that might at least account for a little bit of the lack of interest at the start of this match.
So some of the key spots included a Fujiwara attempt by Asuka on the floor, but Belair deadlifts her into a powerbomb on the floor and then rolls Asuka in. Then Belair runs her shoulder into the post and has to deal with that. She gets caught in the ankle lock, but again, powers herself out with a slam. And then as she's going for these handsprings, Asuka would go back to the ankle. And Asuka lights her up with these kicks on the edge, drop kicks Belair into the post, but then Belair runs Asuka into the post and does a deadlift superplex into the ring. There's a blockbuster, and finally, Belair hits her handspring moonsault. She finally hits it, but Asuka kicks out, and Belair is in a state of disbelief that Asuka is still kicking out. And then Belair lifts her on her shoulders. Asuka escapes, and we get a tug of war with Bianca's braid. Like they're just pulling with all their might here. And then it leads into a code breaker by Asuka. Belair kicks out, hits a glam slam onto the turnbuckle, and she's screaming at Asuka, lifts her up for the KOD, and Asuka holds on to the rope. And it was it was like the Rainmaker pose when as soon as she goes for the KOD, it was like this audience picked up because, okay, now we're into the important stuff where a finish could happen. And Asuka holds onto the rope and Belair nearly runs into the referee, but holds up, turns around, and Asuka goes for the mist and Bianca ducks the mist, lifts her up for the KOD, but it's countered and she goes to the armbar. And dude, this audience exploded. She is right in the middle of the ring. And now the audience believes Belair's title reign is in doubt. But Belair rolls to her feet, powers to her feet, and gets the KOD to Asuka and wins it in 15 minutes and 58 seconds. I thought this was a very good match. It's going to be compared to Belair's last 2 years, which is a pretty high standard that she set. I didn't feel this was at the Sasha Banks or Becky Lynch matches, but I really like this story right up until the end. She ultimately was able to power out of whatever Asuka caught her in and ends up getting the KOD at the end and is 3-0 at WrestleMania now.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this match. For me, like I wasn't necessarily like maybe disinterested at the beginning, but it certainly got to a different level, towards the end. I think I was just more so this match and this feud, I think was maybe a bit impacted by lack of real genuine story. And maybe because you didn't really have much desire to want to see either person win nor lose. But I thought they absolutely managed to capture me just with the impressive physical display that they were able to, showcase here. I thought Asuka was on a different level, like
she looked really like it was a really well wrestled match. It was
her movements, her speed, her technicality. Like this was like, high black belt level performance. And
those kicks look great on the apron. And I just like the weaving of it. Like here's this submission ace and Belair is just this athlete that has this incredible power that is able to overcome all of these submission threats that Asuka presented.
Yeah. This felt like, like a 15, 20-minute sprint?
16
minute. Yeah. I thought by the end it was incredibly entertaining. I wish I had a bit more interest coming into it, but I thought the match itself was great.
Do you think that this was it for the program?
I do. Yeah. I think Belair's had a few months now of like opponents that she can't really build much story with, like with Alexa Bliss and now with Asuka. I want to see her in a bit more of like a dramatic kind of like personal program.
Yeah, you brought it up and I echo the same. Like you have all these people in the division, but you do not have a ton of viable challengers. Obviously, Rhea Ripley is someone way down the road that they can do that match. I don't think that's going to be imminent. Like you need to build up some challengers for Bianca Belair because I'm coming out of this show and who is positioned for something with Bianca Belair?
Who's positioned to take the belt off of Bianca Belair?
I'm not even saying to take the belt off her, just to feud with her. Like you're kind of starting from scratch and maybe you do a big angle on Monday and whether there's a call up or you have somebody on the roster. So, yeah, and maybe we can throw that out to people if they suspect any call-ups this week. Miz and Snoop Dogg announced the attendance, and then Miz starts arguing with Snoop about embarrassing him last night with the Pat McAfee match, and Miz gets upset, saying, I don't show up at your studio and tell you how to rap. So Snoop says that this is our city, and he brings out Shane McMahon. And out comes Shane. He does his big entrance, and he gets in, and he gets on the microphone, and he was either blown up or he was really emotional.
He was emotional, John. Yeah. Like tears in his eyes. And I mean, obviously a lot of strife in his family and maybe for him personally too, stemming off of the Rumble last year. And who knows what the man has been going through.
And who knows if we'll ever see Shane on screen again. Like there is a very, you never know.
After this, you're right. Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows? And he probably knows like I'm sure that this is a very, very difficult period for him where this was someone that grew up thinking he was going to follow in his father's footsteps and run this company and pass it on to his kids. And now for the first time in his life, he's going to see a company that is not owned by his family.
Absolutely. And I still have to catch up on Succession tonight.
As do I. Yes. It sounded like a very funny episode based on what I could hear upstairs.
No spoilers, please.
Shane is all choked up and Snoop says from one OG to another to Shane.
Yeah.
Anyway, Snoop Dogg calls for the bell, and we are getting, for the second time at a WrestleMania, The Miz against Shane McMahon.
What?
They
This happened?
They faced, yeah, I think 2019.
Like in an actual match that they build?
They had like a Falls Count Anywhere match years ago. I think it was Falls Count Anywhere.
Okay. You're right.
Remember
yeah.
they were the team and then they broke up?
Okay, yes. All right.
So, unfortunately, Shane goes for a leapfrog and he comes down and his knee, it looked to be his knee. His knee goes out and he goes down.
Andrew Thompson, thank you. He informed me that Triple H confirmed that Shane tore his quad.
Tore his quad.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, that's even worse. I mean,
It's
quad, they're bad.
McMahon family thing. Hunter
twice.
Yeah.
Twice tore his quad.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes down, tears his quad, and he's down. And you can see Miz at first is just wondering if he's selling. And then Snoop Dogg is in there. And Snoop Dogg, you can see the ref is like, dude, this is legit. Because this guy's kind of out of his element. And dude, Snoop Dogg just like quarterbacks this thing. He just thinks on his feet and starts attacking the Miz. And dude, Miz again, like he literally rolled with the punches. Yep. He takes a right hand, he goes down. Snoop Dogg does like the world's worst people's elbow, but no one cared. He pins Miz in 211. Dude, Snoop Dogg and Miz, like Miz doesn't get any credit for this. These two saved what could have just been a total, it was a disaster. Let's not get things out of it, but these two really thought on their feet quickly, and especially for Snoop Dogg, who is just like, he's just the celebrity who's here for like a promo segment.
I think this is the best freestyle of Snoop Dogg's life. The ability to come out here on a stage like this and to be as comfortable. I would love to know the behind the scenes of what exactly happened, what the intended finish of this segment was supposed to be. I mean, if it was just simply like,
dude, it was probably Shane doing something nuts.
Yeah. Part of me just thinks like, was there some physicality that Snoop Dogg was supposed to be involved with anyway, and they just fast forwarded to it? Or did he possibly, or whoever might have, covertly told him to proceed with this? If it was him coming up with even like a fraction of what we ended up seeing, the man is incredible. Okay, like give him his Hall of Fame induction right away. He's
in the Hall of Fame, I think.
Oh, he's already in. Well,
I think
of course.
He's in.
Well, who isn't?
I'm not up on my celebrity wing inductees.
Yeah, this was like, I mean, I don't know, like when we talk about WrestleMania moments, like sometimes it's about like what you can execute that was scripted. But I think a part of the magic of professional wrestling is to see what somebody can create when you have unpredictable moments like this. What can you improvise? What can you create on the fly? And the dude ended up creating, I would say, quite the moment. So yeah, it sucks to see that for Shane, like
just one spot, like
awful.
One leapfrog freak thing. And that's unfortunate because dude, he's 51 and tearing a quad, like that sucks. So anyway, hopeful recovery for Shane McMahon. Finn Balor and Edge had to follow this with the Hell in a Cell match presented by The Pope's Exorcist, which we got a trailer and a voiceover from Russell Crowe warning us to go watch this movie. And
I thought having Russell Crowe do like the intro to Hell in a Russell was pretty great.
Hell in a Russell. Oh my God. You're turning into me. Then we hear the sounds of Slayer and Edge comes up, and dude, I thought Paul Levesque was making his comeback here. He has like the mask on, and Slayer's playing.
It was like a disco ball skull.
It was like a combination of like Hunter's attire for the Sting match with like Scott Steiner's stylist.
I mean, I thought it was kind of cool.
It looked cool. I
don't know if it was exactly devil-like, but I don't know. I've never been to hell, so I can't really tell you what's cool down there right now.
We've lived through WCW 2000, so yes. It then turns into his regular theme, and then we get the Demon Balor entrance, and I was really worried about this match because there's a lot of weapons underneath. And what if these two guys don't know which weapons are whose?
Because they're color.
We had red and purple chairs. We had red and purple kendo sticks so that we had color coordinated weapons for these two. I thought I was watching like the reward challenge on Survivor.
They might have gone a bit overboard with some of the, production elements here. Probably unnecessary. I don't know if the demon should be carrying out like a purple kind of a smoke.
Is this the first time Is this the first time we've gone back to the regular Hell in a Cell and not the red cell? Or had they already made that switch back? Remember they were using the red cell for a while?
You could be right. Yeah, I don't know.
I could also be very wrong. I have no idea.
I think we had enough color coding on this, because how would you see the red chair inside a red cell?
I would have been lost. So Edge traps Balor in the corner with the kendo sticks that he puts through the fence. And dude, this guy, it looked like the Exorcist here with Balor with his paint on, being locked and trying to get out. And then Edge pulls out the table for the giant pop, the table, no matter where you go, it's the most over baby face. Frees him from the kendo sticks and then hits him with an impaler DDT. And Corey Graves brings up Gangrel, but there was no sign of a Gangrel on this show. And they didn't even really do the Brood entrance. Like it said Brood Edge, like the text.
It said Brood Edge, really?
It literally said that for his entrance, but it was not like
he came out.
He elevated.
Yeah, that was about it.
I guess.
And you got to see blood.
Theme. Yeah.
You got to see some blood here, real blood.
You did. I don't know if it was intentional, but yes, you got to see blood here because Edge takes a ladder and whips it at Balor. And all of a sudden, a faucet has been opened and you're just seeing the blood leaking. And Sean Bennett is the unfortunate referee who has to get in. And how many times, Wai, have we had this discussion that if there's a real problem and it's WrestleMania, are they actually going to do something? Now, this was not the case of a guy that had a neck injury or even, I guess, like there was a potential of a concussion, but there were no signs of it. I think it was just he was lacerated. And this referee commanded things and they got the medical staff in. They made sure he was okay. And yes, it brought a halt to the match. But listen, I am not going to sit here and we always talk about when we have seen matches continue that should not. Like, I don't think Finn Balor was in grave danger, but they checked on him, and I have no issue that they stopped this. So I'm not going to complain, even if it hurt the flow of the match.
Mike Johnson at PW Insider reported that ringside, they had actually gave him an injection and stapled him live.
Oh, are you kidding me? They stapled him on the spot?
Yeah, that's what Mike Johnson reported. And if that's the case, that is incredible.
Wow.
And I think tells you how committed they are to this no blood policy.
Yeah, certainly. Like they did stop the cut, and there was you could see, like when he was leaning over, the blood was forming on the like it was a bad cut. You could see, and if it's in a bad spot, like you need to tend to it. And yeah, I'm sure time stood still, and Edge probably felt like this was 10 minutes. Realistically, it was like 2 minutes, and he had to.
And thankfully, you have a veteran who, knows how to, you could tell he was thinking, what do I do? What do I do? And just kind of every weapon that he pulled out from underneath the ring was receiving a big reaction. So he just went down to the apron and just pulled out a bunch of kendo sticks. And thankfully, that was enough time to put these staples in. Jesus.
I'll tell you, I don't care how much trust I would have in a medical staff. These people are scrambling as WrestleMania is on pause until you put staples in my head. No, thank you. I'm done. I'm going to the back. I'm going to hang out with Shane in the back. Edge, you can just finish this match with Damian Priest. So anyway, the match continues. A coup de grace misses, and then Edge misses a spear running into the ladder, and then Balor lands a coup de grace, and Edge kicks out. So Balor climbs a ladder, but he's hit by the kendo stick, and an impaler DDT is executed by Edge off the DDT, and we get the red and purple chairs, and Balor gets the chair. He gets the kendo stick and starts attacking Edge, places him onto the table, and he climbs the ladder, but then sees a very conveniently placed ledge on the side of the cell. This is the add-on for the Mattel Hell in a Cell that you can get, a ledge, which he just hops onto, and he leaps off this ledge.
Okay, but the hard camera, the robotic hard camera that they had to shoot the match is also on that ledge, so that could have been there anyway.
Okay, but where did the camera go then? Did they move it?
Camera's still there. It's robotic. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we have it. And Balor comes off this ladder or off this ledge, and he misses Edge, and he does the coup de grace through the table, which just shatters in half. And then Edge spears Balor. Balor kicks out, and Edge goes nuts here with kendo stick shots, chair shots, and a final concerto to Finn Balor in 18 minutes. and 9 seconds. And of the all-time legendary WrestleMania calls, nothing on this show is going to beat the Pope's Exorcist. Get your tickets now. And Edge exorcising his demons on the grandest stage of them all. Michael Cole, ladies and gentlemen, the pro of all pros.
That's it.
Get your tickets now.
Boy.
This was not my match of the show. I saw a divided set of opinions on this match. I thought that they had the unfortunate pause in the middle, but that did not detract from this for me. For me, it was like it didn't overstay its welcome. It did go 18 minutes. I was watching this and feeling this could end up going 30, and I don't think they needed to go 30. I thought it was a good match. It was not there were better matches on the show, but there were definitely worse matches on this show, and I was pretty satisfied with this.
I was satisfied with it, and I thought it was I would say it was a good match, maybe circumstantially, just in terms of atmosphere. They completely got this crowd by the end, and I think I have more respect for it knowing that a man got stapled.
I did not see that. So
mid-match, there was a lot of unpredictability in this match. I'm sure it did not go as planned, but again, a part of professional wrestling is improvising and seeing what you could do and how you can recover, and I thought they absolutely recovered really well. I thought they delivered like a pretty good amount of brutality that is worthy of like the Hell in a Cell billing. I thought the entrances were good, and I thought the final concerto delivered like a pretty good level of catharsis, after the Beth concerto, of course. And
it was so similar just to what we had seen with Jungle Boy and Christian, though, just a few weeks ago. It was just like the same ending minus a burial.
How did you feel about the demon here? Because I love it as an attraction, and to me it's still a draw, but I don't know if they it kind of felt a little corny to me at times, if I have to be honest. Like the tongue sticking out, and just obviously there's some unfortunate, like if hard to sell a demon when you have to
he needs medical attention.
Yeah, a demon that needs medical attention, and that's not fault of theirs, of course. But I don't know. What do you think?
I was surprised by this outcome. I thought Finn Balor was going to win this but it did seem like on both nights they really loaded up on feel good outcomes from Ray, Edge, Bianca. Outside, like, what were your major heel wins? Like, it was Gunther, and it's the match we're going to get into next. Like, it seemed like unless there was like a solid reason for that heel to win, it was like a heavy babyface.
The main event made up for it.
Well, maybe some of that was the thinking, was that you're going to get the rug pulled out from you in the main event, that we're going to give you a lot of happy moments before we get to the end.
I also don't know how much attention they're paying to, people who are keeping track of like how many good guys versus bad guys have won.
No, but I do think it somewhat impacts the audience in terms of like the Ray ending. Like, I think that that was it was a feel good moment for the crowd that Ray prevails, even though most assume that feud is continuing.
And should a WrestleMania not provide that? I mean, it's really your season finale, and I think you want to end things on a happy ending for at least most of their storylines, with the exception.
You're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Kayla Braxton welcomed Bianca Belair, who just said that Asuka took her to her limit. She's a great fighter, and then we got a return of the Divas of Compton, who just surrounded her and chanted EST. And I would just hire these girls to just go with Bianca from city to city.
Just make them the Divas of Bianca Belair, I guess. The Divas of Belair. And just have them travel with them and just do this entrance. I'd be for that. Hey, John, before we get to our main event, we have 100,000 people announced attendance, 100,000 heartbeats listening to us right now. And if all of you guys can do us a favor and just hit subscribe to the channel, we would really appreciate it. And also, if you really like us, maybe consider subscribing to the Post Wrestling Cafe.
That is right. We have had some tremendous WrestleMania coverage all week long at the Post Wrestling Cafe. Interviews with Brandon Thurston, Dave Meltzer, Speedball Mike Bailey, Mania previews. We had lots of Mania discussion all week long, and it will continue post-Mania. We will be back later this week with a special edition of Rewind Away covering CM Punk's interview on the art of wrestling from November of 2014. We're going to look back almost 9 years removed from a very pivotal interview that was the focus of a lawsuit years later. So we are going to go through that entire interview this Thursday. It's a special Thursday edition of the Rewind Away series. And if you sign up, it's $6 to get you in the door, access to all of our bonus shows and a month's worth of content, and access to 127 editions of Rewind Away and all of our archives, from Drive to Survive to interviews with Oscar nominated documentarians. We have it all on the Post.
MCU later. And if you have to catch up on a lot of the WrestleMania week coverage, we did reviews of GCW's Bloodsport, the Mark Hitchcock Memorial, Super Card of Honor from Ring of Honor, of course. So postwrestlingcafe.com, video.postwrestling.com. We appreciate your support. Take that, Michael Cole.
That's it.
Come on.
Get your tickets now to the Post Wrestling Cafe. And for the others, they're like $6. These guys aren't worth that. You can just subscribe to the YouTube channel free of charge and do the bare minimum. So then we had the Hall of Fame class come out on stage with Stacy Keibler, the Great Muta, the Tim White's family, Andy Kaufman's family, and then our main eventer in his Gucci Adidas ensemble, the best dressed man at WrestleMania, Rey Mysterio. The man just dripping, coming out here, with all due respect to Seth Rollins. And then they go person by person, and Muta missed his cue. So he did the mist, and the camera missed the mist, and it was too early. So Muta blew his big spot.
Two missed miss on the show.
That is true. So there you go, your Hall of Fame class. And then we went to a shot of fans in Philadelphia, the site of next year's show. Apparently, though, there were people in the at SoFi that booed the announcement of WrestleMania in Philadelphia next year.
Oh, come on. You had two of the best WrestleManias of all time. Get over yourself.
How many of these people booing are going to be at that show next year? Probably a fair amount. So yeah. Let's be real here. So the main event, it was fairly early, Way. Even knowing we were going to get a long main event, I was like, we are not going to be going live at midnight. That would be my assumption. So Roman Reigns and Cody.
We have to make time for these entrances.
Well, yeah. Once the entrances went through, I was like, you know what? Maybe not. So, dude, the lights go down for Cody's theme, and there is a audible roar of this crowd. I can say this: seeing a full year of this Undisputed Championship, a hot babyface, a hot heel, the one big match. This felt like we are not debating what was the main event of WrestleMania this year. It was, with all due respect to the tag match last night, this was the main event of WrestleMania. It felt like the main event of WrestleMania, and it felt like a big main event of WrestleMania. Yeah. And this crowd, they were here for this match, and they exploded when they realized Cody's coming out.
Completely agreed. Yeah. I mean, we can always think back, to a month ago or 6 weeks ago and the debate about whether or not it should be Sami Zayn. If Sami Zayn had the spot, I think the reaction would have been just as big. But I think this allowed you to parlay the Sami Zayn momentum into the first night, where you got an equally, similarly big reaction. And Cody has done such a tremendous job building the story from last year to this year. And he just has that presence about him that feels like such a WrestleMania main event level presence. It completely felt like a big WrestleMania main event. Yeah.
This guy looked like $1 million walking out. And coincidentally, that was at minimum the cost of this pyro display for Cody as it went off. And he goes ringside, and there is Brandy, his daughter Liberty, his mother, his sister Teal, and then Brody Jr., -1, unmasked on WWE television. And he gets Cody's weightlifting belt. This was, to me, one of the coolest moments of any of these nights. It was so awesome.
So awesome. Of course, this is the weightlifting belt with all the names of the promotions that he's worked in through his excursion, including
Smash
AEW.
Wrestling, Toronto's own Smash Wrestling, making it to the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, we had said whatever lucky kid is going to get that. I mean, is a very lucky kid, and he chose the best choice, obviously.
And Michael Cole explaining as well who he is, and Brody Lee's son as well.
Yeah.
So that was nice for people that might not have
So
realized
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
So we have gotten both -1 and Preston Vance unmasking within months.
Oh, well, you know, if Ray can have a career with the mask on afterwards, and so can -1.
Then we go to Roman's entrance, and there are 6 pianists at the entrance, and they were terrific. Like this was, this was my parents' dream of what I would have become in when I was 8 years old. Going to
One of the
piano
6
lessons.
pianists for the Roman Reigns WrestleMania entrance.
Those were their hopes for me. I let them down. And then we shift to Roman's regular theme, and he comes out with Paul Heyman and
What a
Solo
beautiful
Sikoa.
entrance. I mean, like the Roman Reigns entrance is really like pretty great anyway, but to see it on a big stage, I know I've seen it before, but tonight it just felt almost like the greatest it's ever been, especially maybe because I had the knowledge that this might have been the last time I was seeing him with the championship. So
there's so much heat. They're in the ring. Samantha Irvin did a fantastic job of introducing them, and Cole loves the it's a big fight feel. Like that was the appropriate description for when this bell rang, and this crowd went nuts as the bell rang, and they just go face to face, and we start off the match. And early on, Cody is caught after a disaster kick with a power bomb, and Reigns is just playing with him. He's waving at the Rhodes family, and then Sikoa gets involved, nailing Cody in the ribs with a chair shot behind the ref's back that sets up a drive-by, and Cody would be clutching at his ribs and always like checking in with the ribs, and this would become a handicap that he would have to deal with. Then Rhodes gets tripped by Sikoa, and finally Sikoa steals the weightlifting belt, and I wish they had got a shot of him like ripping it away from Brody Jr.
Me too.
He gets the weightlifting belt, and he just starts whipping Cody, and Dan Engler, the referee, does not see it, but he hears it, and he turns around, and when he ejects Solo Sikoa, you had 67,000 people lose their minds. It sounded like 80.
I mean, we can all assume that he took it from Brody Jr. But if we had seen that, if everybody in attendance had seen that,
even more,
the heat would have been that much
nuts.
crazier. Absolutely.
So Sikoa is leaving, and listen, there's so much praise that you can throw around here. Paul Heyman's facial reaction when Sikoa was leaving, he's got this look like he is frightened, like this was not supposed to happen. Oh God.
Yeah.
And Reigns gets the weightlifting belt, and Engler tries to stop him from using it. So Cody nails him with a kick and hits the crossroads, and we get our first major near fall. And this audience was ready. Like 15 minutes in, yeah, we can wrap this up. Cody wins. No. Reigns kicks out, and he comes back. There's a Uranagi by Reigns called the rock bottom, but then the Superman punch is avoided, and Cody, by avoiding the Superman punch, Roman is leaned over, and Cody hits the pedigree. The heel turn.
The heel turn.
Remember, he said that if he ever hits that move, that would be the signal. Don't you remember? This was one of Cody's
Listen, I feel like that's a completely different guy. Like that was Devontae. I don't really.
Cody broke down how he had actually turned back in AEW. Okay, he explained this to Ariel Helwani, and then said, like, what does a heel do? A heel takes something that the audience wants away from them, and they all wanted me to turn heel. So I told them I would never turn heel. I was taking that away from them. And then he follows that explanation as he's hearing it himself, explaining it to Ariel. He's like, maybe that was too nuanced. Yeah, Cody, maybe it was. Maybe it was. If you have to explain to people what the purpose of this is. Yes. Anyway, it's a much better fit that he is in now, several years removed. So Reigns then hits a Superman punch after Cody goes for the disaster kick, and the disaster kick is met with a Superman punch in midair. And the replay of this was amazing. And then the replay shows Heyman, and he's not looking at the 2. He just assumes it's over, and he's counting 1, 2, and then 3. And when he doesn't hear the bell, his look of just shock was amazing.
His facial.
I'm so glad this replay showed this. It was great.
Yeah, they got to put a camera on him just in the corner, like the whole time. His facial expressions in every Roman Reigns match, especially the big ones like this, are always fantastic just to watch.
Cody applies a figure 4, and Michael Cole is screaming at the top of his lungs, Dusty Rhodes is looking down at his baby boy. It was amazing, dude. For Michael Cole, remember like 2 years ago, he like blew the finish of the call at WrestleMania. And it was like, man, this poor guy, like it's like the biggest call of the year. And you messed it up thinking it was a near fall. And then he had a great weekend. Honestly,
Yes.
like he had a bunch of like great calls. And I feel this is like the culmination of Michael Cole at ease over this last 9 months. And for his sake, I hope it stays that way. But
I really feel like a shift. I mean, I think it's been happening for a long, long time now. But I mean, for years, for really the better part of his entire career, Michael Cole was seen as like the corporate choice, the one that the company wanted to replace Jim Ross and the guy who miscalls moves. And, but I think over like, especially recent years, and especially since Hunter took over and Michael Cole found out about, Wikipedia, people I think are starting to really give the man the respect he deserves.
And I think enough stories that have come out that like, dude, this guy's job sucks for a lot of these 25 years he's been in this company. It's a brutal job to have. And this guy in your ear for all this long, and this guy's lasted. He outlasted the guy in his ear, at least temporarily.
Yeah.
So Reigns then applies the guillotine and he puts him in his closed guard, and Cody pops his head out, drops his ground and pound, and then Cody misses Reigns and nails the referee. Both are down from a double clothesline spot, and he goes for the crossroads to Roman when the Usos appear, and they shot this really well. So it's like you didn't see the Usos coming, and they break it up with super kicks, and they hit a 1D when Owens and Zayn storm the ring. Place goes nuts. Owens gets in a stunner on Reigns. Zayn hits the haluva kick to Reigns, and they brawl with the Usos into the crowd and take them out of the mix. Cody, with his remaining life, crawls on top of Roman, and Roman gets his shoulder up at the last second. They get to their feet, and they're just trading big blows. This is like the end of a Rocky fight where they're just throwing these exaggerated overhands at one another, and the crowd's just living with and dying with each one.
It was one of the most intense yay boos I've ever seen in professional wrestling.
It's like the audience felt it was almost like they were hot this whole match, but I think in the back of their head, it was like, we know we're going to see the Usos. We know we're going to get Owens and Zayn. So once they had done their portion of the match, now we are on the precipice of the end. And that's where they are ready to explode. So he avoids the Superman punch, and he nails Roman with the jabs and hits the bionic elbow, hits the crossroads, holds on, hits a second crossroads, rolls, and he's going to hit the third when Heyman gets on the apron. And there in the corner is the returning Solo Sikoa, who stops Cody in his tracks with the Samoan spike. And from there, Roman Reigns spears Cody, and Reigns pins Cody in 34 minutes and 29 seconds. One of the longest matches in WrestleMania history, and Roman prevails. Cody is dejected, and Heyman yells to Reigns, "You are WrestleMania." And this crowd is aghast.
I could not believe it. We've been, in our previews, we've been talking about this match for weeks. We had a call yesterday from somebody saying, hey, like, are the chances of Cody winning lessened because of a babyface win in the first night? I laughed, okay? I laughed. I didn't laugh out loud. I laughed in my head. Impossible. This is about as much of a slam dunk of a build as I think you could have called ever, more so than Mark Briscoe in Samoa Joe, more so than Eddie Kingston, Claudio Castagnoli, more so than really anything. They have never, ever, ever been able to find somebody like a Roman Reigns be this dominant of a champion. And they've certainly not been able to find somebody to be able to match that level of intensity at all until they found Cody Rhodes. And the timing happened to work out that they managed to build this to the main event of WrestleMania on the second night. They gave up on a babyface like a Sami Zayn in order to get to Cody, and they did not execute. I was stunned. I could not believe it. I was holding out for a dusty finish, and of course, if there was an appropriate night for one of those, if there was an appropriate night for the Triple H signature, and then some sort of swerve afterwards, it would have been tonight. It did not happen. I'm stunned. I still am completely stunned, and it was incredibly, I would say, deflating. But I also can't get mad at the experience I had. I thought this was one of the great WrestleMania main events of all time.
It was phenomenal.
The ride that they took us on. And I think so much of it is because I knew that finish was coming. But even like I was so sure of this finish that it was almost like an Undertaker streak, back when the streak was alive. I mean, we know Taker's winning, but if they can suspend our disbelief long enough to think that somebody else could win, then okay, then I'll really get into it. And my shock when Cody lost was as big as maybe the Undertaker losing his streak. But it was an incredible professional wrestling viewing experience for me. What about you?
I thought it was an outstanding match among the most heated matches you would think of in WrestleMania history. I would say it was that incredible. This crowd. I think they missed the timing on it. I think that this was the idea that you build it for a bigger day.
Oh.
Maybe you'll come close to this. I don't know if you will hit such a peak as this where the family is there. We watched two families leave these WrestleMania weekend shows disappointed that the person did not win the title. I cannot fathom the Supercard of Honor finish with Mark Briscoe. So this one, I mean, I don't know what you could do that makes the next one bigger. And yes, if they do it at SummerSlam, if they do it at WrestleMania next year, I'm sure it'll be a big moment and you will get people stating, oh, everyone doubted it. Everyone doubted it. This was what they did. This was Gato's booking for a long time as well, and building to that eventual Naito victory as well. So listen, they're in a position, they are, there's no financial penalty for delaying this. It's just making creative calls. But when Amanda Huber is tweeting out that was the wrong call, I'm going to agree with Amanda Huber on this particular night. You had everything in a row. It was just perfectly made. And the number 1,000 is obviously just a intoxicating number. Those zeros, we're so close. We're so close to 1,000. I've said for months, I just don't think you can get any more. This title reign, it has been great. They've got a phenomenal story attached to it. I'm sure they have a story coming out of this. I just think ultimately this title reign is only as big as the person that unseats him. And tonight, everything was perfect. It was, we said that about Drew, and this was that times 50. Yeah. Everything was perfect. The injury comeback, the Rumble win, bypassing Sammy, this sold out 2 nights.
We said that about Sammy. Now, I think we all agree that Cody was probably the right choice because Cody checked all those other boxes that you wanted out of a guy leading your company as the face as the champion, a guy who's great in mainstream press, a guy who looks like $1 million, a guy who's good with media, a guy who's, packing houses here, and doing ratings and everything. What more possible could they be looking for in somebody to, take to the next level of a Roman Reigns?
I think they're going to continue with it. I think Cody's story has to end with this title win, but are you going to have so many things in place that you recreate tonight? Maybe
the risk. They must be confident, or John, maybe they want to have Reigns not just get to 1,000. Maybe they want to have him chase Bruno. Okay, so I think Bruno 2,800 days we're headed towards. So, but this reign's going to be a whole lot longer, perhaps.
Yeah, I am sure there's a lot behind this booking decision and going with it because
I'm flabbergasted. I still am. I really they must be pretty damn confident in their ability to book. They must, see. I mean, the word is they have a lot planned ahead, and maybe this is something we'll look back a year from now and say that was the right call. They made that pop that much bigger tonight. But it's a risk. You're always taking a risk. Injuries happen. People just hey, man, leave this industry for whatever reason, and you can't finish these stories.
Cody is, fresh back on WWE television. So he has this freshness to him. But this guy's turning, not to say he's near the end of his career or anything, but he's turning 38, which is I feel people don't realize he feels younger on television. These are prime years that if you're going to get that run in, I'd I just don't know how much more you do with Roman at this point, beyond you're a bulletproof company that you could put the title on just about anybody, and it's just a degree of how profitable you are going to be. And the guy who has the title is not dictating your finances. So it's ultimately a creative choice.
More importantly, I'm very curious to know what this means for the entire roster as a whole. In our preview, we were so sure that they were going to go with the new champion, that we were talking about all the possibilities for what they could go to afterwards, because it completely refreshes the entire division, the entire roster. You can do Cody versus such and such, Cody versus, Gunther, Cody versus Logan Paul. Well, what are those matches now for Roman Reigns? He's gone through pretty much everybody.
And the elephant in the room in all of this is who is going to be leading this creative. Like, if you're going of the assumption that Paul Levesque is the person that is continuing to spearhead creative, I think you are left with like optimism that the story is going to go. But you do not know that, and where this company is going to fit, and what is Vince McMahon's role going to be. And I just think that you have to go with that impression as well, that is a possibility of all of this. This entire company could look very different in 24 to 48 hours.
I suppose so, but even going by like the Vince McMahon metric, like what would he not want about a Cody Rhodes victory tonight?
You don't know. I mean, the argument certainly would be, with Cody, it's like he was brought in as a star last year and treated like it, and that was months before the changeover as well. And I don't know what the thinking was tonight beyond, hey, it's.
We also can't blame every bad booking decision just on Vince, like.
No, it's like, listen, if this, and for the public stance is that Paul Levesque is leading all of this, and I'd question his booking on this one for sure. Like the work is to get to a moment like this, and then you pull the trigger. And they were not trigger happy on this night. They just want to, they are up huge at the table, and they just want to go double or nothing, pardon the pun, but continue to grow it.
Yeah. I mean, I really hate to like speak negatively at all about like that match. It really, to me, was one of the great WrestleMania main events of all time. I'm only disappointed because I wonder if we'll continue to think that way in the future, because we tend to just remember title changes, significant title changes when we think about legendary WrestleMania.
Well, it was going to be a changing of the guard kind of match. Like, here is a guy winning his first title. He is someone that you look at not just as a guy we're putting on the belt for 3 months, but a guy that you could see being their successor. Like that.
So and rather than this being the end of a story, does it just become another chapter in the middle of a bigger book?
Yeah. And is there any sort of loss of faith in Cody? And we're going to see, because this is the guy that is out there doing the house shows, and we have seen what impact Cody has had on live events, and you're not going to have Roman at all of these house shows. And does he, not to say Cody, it becomes nothing, but even if he loses a bit of the edge, like he came into this red hot, and if he's just like a hot baby face, it's like that's great. But did you take some of the steam off of Cody when he failed in such a major match? And maybe not. Maybe he is fine from this. He's a great talker. He'll be positioned highly. I would say coming out of this, I'm more leaning towards like Backlash being maybe like Cody, Owen, Zayn against the Usos and Roman, or Sikoa in there as well, rather than a title defense at Backlash.
So what, a 6-man?
6-man, yeah.
But what's at stake? Like how do you best this? Like, this was the ultimate. This was the final stage. This was Endgame. And the Avengers failed.
I'm not arguing this one. I don't have a defense for you. It's they have their reasoning for it, and the let it play out crowd will have that reason as the one. But to me, it was like, man, you had the layup of all layups here. Like you did the work and didn't bask in the glory at the end of it all, because this would have been, I think this is ultimately going to be a really well-remembered main event and a well-remembered WrestleMania these 2 nights. But to me, it would have been an all-time classic if this was Cody's big win in such a significant moment. And the significance of this guy winning, and the next day it's a new era for the company potentially as well. I just think the whole history will be tied to this weekend of the company going from one phase to the next, and this is the guy leading them into that next era.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
No, they did not. Are there some of you out there that disagree with us and think that tonight was the right call? Let us know. We'd love to know your thoughts right now. We're going to go to some of your feedback. If you have a question or comment, if you're watching us live, you can leave a super chat, and a lot of you guys already have, so thank you guys for that. So you guys will be jumping the line tonight. But also, if you're a patron at postwrestlingcafe.com or video.postwrestling.com, you will find the call-in link to call in live with some of your thoughts to talk about WrestleMania Night 2, Night 1, anything that took place this past week. If you want to talk about WWE and what's going on with Endeavor, you can also talk about that too. But before we get to some of the calls, John, your overall thoughts on tonight's show?
Tonight's show, I thought that it was, I would put night 1 ahead of night 2, but I thought that the main event was excellent, and I thought the IC title match was excellent. Those two matches were terrific. And I would say overall, if you are collectively grading WrestleMania on the 2 nights, I would say this was among the best WrestleManias ever. When you talk about those 2 matches tonight, coupled with last night's show of the tag title match, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte, Seth Rollins and Logan Paul, and Rey and Dominic, like that's an incredible WrestleMania level of matches that we often don't get out of a WrestleMania. But I would seriously look at this as among the best WrestleManias of all time.
I think we've seen enough like WWE PLEs at this point to know that in-ring quality is never a question. Like this roster is really tremendous. Now, when you're talking about even like celebrities being able to deliver, like professional wrestling is just really good right now. So that was great. It's just unfortunate that maybe we come out of this questioning a booking decision and whether or not that might have robbed this show of a legendary status. Will this be remembered? I hope so, because I think it deserves to be. The build to this was, I think, among the best of the WrestleManias that we've ever had. The in-ring quality is at a different level now.
It's funny, like a lot of people defer to 17 as their favorite WrestleMania, and that was certainly a WrestleMania that ended with a horrendous booking decision. Like
True.
One that we have concrete proof it did terrible for WWF's business. It was a horrible booking decision they made that night, but that did not lessen the quality of that show in people's memories. So if people just, remember the match, like it was an outstanding match and the heat was through the roof. It was unbelievable. Like one of the best main events you would look at in WrestleMania history.
Okay, let's go to some of your feedback now. And of course, we want to give some priority to our super chatters. Thank you guys for joining us live, first of all. And thank you for sending in your super chats. Let's go, first of all, to, if I can load this up, Hernice De La Cruz sends $10. Thank you so much, Hernice, again, for all your support the past 2 nights. He says, not a question, just a thank you for the great week-long coverage with interviews and event reviews. I'll miss the post-news intro theme, though. Thank you for that, Hernice. And that's certainly not the last time you'll be seeing post-daily news updates. I mean, John and I were both incredibly happy with just getting back into the pace of it. It's not sustainable, and there's not always news, I would say, or interest to sustain, like, that type of, like, pace. But for certain occasions, absolutely, we want to continue this.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this is like the high point of the year, but just seeing the people that engaged on the cafe this week and such, like we did very well this week, and we certainly will have a lot to take away from the performance of the site. And as I've mentioned throughout the week, I really want to single out all the help that we had on the site this week. Not just Braden and Davey, who were doing their thing at Gabby's both nights and up next, but Andrew Thompson, Neil Flanagan, John Kleinchester, John Pine, John Sino, Karen Peterson. Like it's a huge team effort, and everyone busted their ass this whole week, and the coverage was insane this week on the site.
Let's go up next to Paul Dominic DeMarco, who sent $7. Thank you, Paul. He says, I'm done with WWE. I'll stick with AEW. Roman's awesome, but 5 clean wins in a 3-year reign is too much for me. 3 to 5 cheat spots at a match ruins WrestleMania.
All of it. Wow. Done with the company. It's been a while since we've gotten one of those. So it was that type of response. Like, listen, for many people, like,
I mean, are you getting happy endings in AEW or maybe that's just ROH, but if the reason why you're gonna not
listen,
watch,
I had the same complaint on ROH on Friday night. Like between to me, it was some downer finishes when you have Mark Briscoe losing and then you have Eddie losing in the main event. I didn't mind Eddie losing. I didn't feel that was the title switch to happen. But yeah, it's sort of your risk that you're taking when you have this longer story in mind, but you've got to go through the fall before you can have the rise for your protagonist.
But thank you, Paul. We hope you'll keep watching, or at the very least, listening to our podcast. Martin Bushby, the man himself, thank you for sending 10 pounds of support. Excellent coverage all week, lads. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin. The great Martin Bushby,
who I believe has tickets to Star Wars convention, Star Wars Con or something. Okay. Something that's going on in London. So I expect to see you dressed up as a C-3PO very shortly. Maybe right now. So thank you, Martin. Thank you. Let's go to Sal from California. Sends $5. Says, thanks for all the extra shows this week. Really enjoyed the daily news updates. Thank you, Sal.
Well, thank you to all of you for checking them out. It makes a big difference when we do this stuff and getting that response. So we appreciate it. Thank you, Sal.
And I would probably speak for John in thanking our wives for maybe dealing with us during WrestleMania week, not being around as much because
the MVPs.
Yeah, really. Payne sends $2. Thank you so much, Payne, for the support. He says, reminder that Shane almost bought the UFC.
Yeah, this was long ago when they were kind of exploring this at one point. I mean, Shane has always wanted that MMA company, but I would not assume that Shane is going to have any involvement in this. I mean, you can always you can never say never, but I don't like Shane as well. When he left the company in 2009, he not only left the company, but he divested himself of his Class B shares, which are just for Vince, Linda, Stephanie, and Shane. So yeah, he tore his quad, which sucks. But this sale that goes through, he does not have he would have made a killing. Could you have imagined in 2009 that this company would be sold for this amount of money?
Yeah, I'm sure I wonder what he would say if you brought that up to him. I'm sure it's something he might think about.
I wouldn't be bringing that up to him tonight.
Yeah, no. Again, I still have to watch Succession. He's such an interesting analogous, comparison to some of the characters on that show. I hope for the best for him. Tonight was a really rough night for him.
Are you ready for the all-time week of mainstream news headlines, cliches, Succession comparisons? Because we're getting all of it this week. This is what these headline
Endeavor is Gojo. Maybe
no chance in hell Vince McMahon sells WWE.
Yeah,
oh god, it's gonna be terrible. And I'm sure a huge focus on sexual misconduct scandal from last year. I'm sure.
Hey, I will say of the coverage I've seen thus far from the few articles, they
did bring it up. They did bring it up.
People get mentioned were the status of Vince McMahon and how he's several sexual harassment allegations have been levied against him. Even some mentioning Dana White and everything that he's been involved with. So this is going to bring all that stuff up again. And so I'm really not.
Also, we didn't touch on this with Brandon or tonight, but in all of the reporting, it's that this new company, it will be a publicly traded company, and therefore, there will be that transparency. And Endeavor, they are going to be, they will be subject to, more transparency as well with this company. And
so does the UFC fudge their attendance numbers? Do they do things like that?
So the UFC, it's certainly they have been doing this sellout streak forever, and there's definitely been people that have disputed when something is a sellout, but typically they work with the commission, and it's a legitimate gate figure that they put out, and they have regulatory commissions that they have to go through as well.
So I just wonder if, now that this is all potentially under the same company, would it change? Would it put pressure on WWE to do that? I mean, so many questions that we have to ask. Let's go to JJ, who sends a $20 super sticker. Thank you so much for the support last night and tonight, JJ.
Thank you,
that's
JJ.
Incredibly awesome. Unfortunately, I can't see the sticker through StreamYard, but I imagine it was. I'm imagining it's like a
Roman's fist.
A fist, sure. Beautiful fist. Derek sent $7. Thank you for the support, Derek. He says, just wanted to send a quick super chat just to thank you folks for the great content this week. Try to get some rest until tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's gonna be a calm day probably.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Eric Chung sends $20 to say
Wow.
thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. Very much appreciated. And thanks for listening and thanks for the support. Let's go to Matt, who sends $5. He says, when every champion is having some sort of record, then I feel like it loses its significance.
I don't know about that. I don't think they're not pushing Bianca or Gunther to the same level, but I like the fact that they bring up how long they've been champion. It makes it sound like a feat that they have accomplished. It makes it sound like a statistic. It adds importance and it doesn't feel redundant to me. Like there's Roman Reigns and then there's every other champion. And to me, it's like bringing up someone's batting average, or if a player is on a 20 game hitting streak. To me, it just adds more credibility to the title reign rather than not acknowledging something that is an impressive statistic.
They are building up several streaks right now, though. Between Bianca, Gunther, obviously, Roman. They did end one of them in the Usos, but they're keeping some of these other ones growing. And Gunther, I completely understand. I think Bianca, I understand too. But man, Roman, it's just when are they going to find a guy like this again? When are they going to find a moment like this again? Anyway, let's go to DJ Depression, who says, okay. He says, thank you for the super chat, DJ Depression. He sends $5 to say anyone can be next level or in God mode if Gomez Adams books them to never lose ever. What, referring to the mustache, of course. What do you think is WWE's obsession with having only the guy? Well, business is up under Roman. Okay, so if you have to justify it, it would be especially that. In terms of storytelling, maybe they have an even better idea on how to end this.
So do you know when day 1000 is?
When?
It's the same day as King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia. That will be his 1000th day as champion.
Yeah. Okay, whatever.
I do not care about this 1000 days at all. Like it makes no difference to me at all, but it's a number. And they will promote the hell out of that probably.
Yeah, we might care about it by that point. But again, like, is that worth having? Is it worth having a great, Roman Reigns Saudi Arabia moment versus not cashing in your chips tonight? On the Cody.
Maybe that's where Cody finishes the story in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, maybe. Nick sends $10 to say Triple H said something about the story continuing on Raw in regards to the main event tonight. I understand what he's saying to a degree, but why not pay off the Bloodline story as a whole when you can?
Well, of course, the story is going to continue on Raw. I mean, that's of course it's we're ending this whole story. It's done. I mean, that's their prerogative that they're making. Like they have their foresight of like where they're going with this, and hopefully it pays off. That when they eventually have this end date in mind for this title reign, that it's a giant, spectacular changing of the guard, and whether it's Cody or if it's someone else, might not be Cody.
Can we maybe put some thought into the idea that, okay, now it's not just WrestleMania, it's not just the Rumble that they want to be their big shows. They want every show to feel like it's a big show. They want Elimination Chamber to almost feel like a WrestleMania. Could they be waiting for a Cody change to take place on one of these other shows? They've already drew the house for tonight. Everybody was already in here. If we prolong the story, prolong the chase a little bit more, can we pack a few more houses for this story?
I wouldn't be too worried about, like, they are super hot right now. And why are they hot? I'm not saying it's only because of Cody, but Cody is definitely a major component of why they are hot at the moment. And to me, that would be like
chase. It's the chase, though. So, well, why not continue?
It's the chase, but you also want to eventually see, like, reap the rewards of what you have built. Like, to make that argument, like say Shawn Michaels had not had the debilitating back injury, and you've built up Austin, and it's the Tyson WrestleMania, and it's like, man, we're really turning things around. Well, let's have Austin chase for another 6 months and to keep the title on Shawn, instead of it's Austin's crowning moment. And business went from here in 97 to here in the first 3 months of 98. And then we put the belt on Austin and business is here. And by the next year, we don't have to rely on a Mike Tyson. Business went, it was a whole fresh coat of paint led by Austin. Shawn's out of the way. You have all these stars that are rising up and business explodes. And it's even bigger. Like that
Ultimately,
would be your hope.
I completely agree with you. I'm in favor. I was in favor of Cody changing tonight, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. And Sean was leaving, and Austin was hotter than Sean. Roman is still incredibly hot, and clearly Roman's not leaving. So is that enough justification to keep this going?
Not leaving in what sense though? Like he's not
he's obviously wanting to keep up the schedule.
All your TVs. He's booked on very few house shows.
Clearly, you don't need him to achieve the success that you've had.
So to me, it would be, well, let's see how we can go with putting the belt on somebody else that is going to be on these pay-per-views every month. Like Roman's not even doing all the pay-per-views every year.
Right. And they've achieved success without that. So if he can continue working this pace and still, do this sort of business for the company, then do they really have the incentive to end what they have with him? Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Well, again, as I said, they are not like, this is not Memphis in 1982 where you shoot the angle and we've got a draw at the Mid-South Coliseum every single Monday night, and a bad booking decision means we all make less because we made a bad booking decision. They are impervious to that. They could have put the title on Otis tonight, and you know what? They're still going to have the most profitable year in their history this year with Otis as champion. Mm-hmm. So this ultimately comes down to you as the viewer. What is the most appealing story that they are telling to you? Do you enjoy the story? Because what we can see, though, is that even with that, like, bad booking is good business. But when you have hot characters and you have put emphasis on your title, we have seen in these last couple of months what it means when you have really over characters and the television is connecting, the stories are connecting. And part of that you can certainly attribute to Roman, and maybe they want to just keep riding this wave and they feel that Roman is our true north as our champion, and we want to just keep going with this. And there's more money in the chase than the babyface champion, which was very much a Jim Crockett type of booking of your world champion with Flair than it was Vince McMahon, where it was built around the babyface that would go to all the cities and headline.
Nick also sends $5 to say, and congratulations on crushing another Mania week with your stellar coverage. Unlike main event finishes, the dynamic duo always delivers.
Well, show isn't over yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yes. What would that entail?
Probably my microphone dying.
Okay. Let's hope not. Akeem Hand sends $10 to say, great WrestleMania. Night one was the better night, but great weekend. Let's go. Roman's 5-year title reign is still in sight. Great coverage, John Away, and thank you. We could be looking back 5 years from now and saying that was the right call. Remember when we thought it was all going to end? What, 2 years in?
Imagine this audience after Bruno won the title in 63 and thinking like, oh, when's he going to drop it? And doesn't drop it till 68.
Yeah. Well, it's the closest in my lifetime they've ever come to that. So Jonathan Meyer sends $5 to say, thanks for the coverage this week to all of the Post Wrestling family. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
For the support. And we go to Hernice de la Cruz to start and close things off. Hernice saying, with Endeavor buying, this will lead to them prioritizing money similar to after buying UFC. So ads on mats might be coming soon.
We're already there. We're there without a sale. Like they have made a priority to, I mean, tonight it was the same as last night. Like not every show is going to command this level of sponsorship, but that, that the toothpaste is out of the tube, and they are, I would envision that happening very rapidly when it comes to more monetization of the mats and finding other ways. Like they're looking at legalized gambling. Like they are looking for every revenue source possible. And this was, and quite frankly, like there were jokes about it. Wasn't all that much resistance from fans either for what was a lot of more advertising on WWE broadcasts, even by prior standards that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Well, I think in shifting this, like this is the Nikon effect of maybe shifting this more towards the sports world. We're used to this in sports. We're used to billboards on every shot in sports. We're used to, this sort of integration and everything on a sports broadcast. And in a way, it almost gives them legitimacy to see all these other brands involved with them in a way. And it's not just kind of this little thing in the corner anymore. Thank you all you guys for all your super chats.
Thank you so much,
A lot of
everyone.
support from everybody tonight, and a lot of thanks for our coverage. So thank you for the appreciation. And if you're watching after the fact, do us a favor, leave a comment. And as always, you could just subscribe to us. That's really all we ask for. Or leave a comment on Apple Podcasts if you're listening, or Spotify if you're listening there. Let's go to some of our phone calls. Thank you to all of you guys who are patrons who've been waiting so patiently. I think we start off with the person who might have given us not a prediction, but a spoiler last night. Andy B, are you there?
Hi guys, haven't been this deflated after a wrestling show for as long as I can remember. I mean, it's a thrilling ride and everything, but at the end of the day, for me anyway, it's the moment that matters. And I fully invested in the Cody story, and that's just very, very unsatisfying ending.
Were you the one who asked about whether or not Cody would end up losing tonight? Or
Yeah, that was me. I've been calling in for a couple of months, and we've been laughing at the people who've been saying 1,000. They're saying, "Oh, it's just a round number. They're not going to do it. They're going to give us the happy ending." And then here we are with egg on our face, unfortunately. But
okay, so 1,000 days is one aspect of it, but I don't think that's the one thing that's dictating, this entire run. Like it's the business and the health of the business that's likely, among other metrics, I'm sure.
Fair enough, Chris. But I think they acknowledge that this is probably the peak for Cody. I think for him, his high point next is going to be when they split off the championships. He'll probably win the WWE title, but I think ultimately it's going to be somebody else dethroning Reigns now, if it all ends up happening.
Who would you see that being? If you don't see Cody being the person who ultimately beats Roman, who would you assign that to?
For me, it's Cody because I think he's at the intersection of the Venn diagram in the sense that he appeals to the lapsed fan in me because he enjoys the retro aspect of it. He appeals to the independent fan because of the journey he's made through all of that, and he is like the guy you can put up on the poster. So for me, it's Cody because he's the intersection of the Venn diagram. But realistically, I think Seth Rollins is super over. They could give him that spot, and there's always that perfect symmetry of Jey Uso is the one to dethrone him as well. So I think those are the two options in my mind right now.
Oh man, if they don't execute with Cody, I just can't see them. I can't see them going back to Rollins as much as I think we like Rollins. I don't think they see Rollins on the same level as a Roman Reigns or maybe what a Cody would have been. Like Rollins is almost like your workhorse, the guy to like your Savage, for lack of a better, like a Savage to Roman's Hogan, for lack of a better comparison. And we've seen that feud before. Like, is it going to be as hot as what we had tonight? Oh man, I don't know. He's gonna have to really catch even more fire than usual. But hey, thank you, Andy, for the call.
Chris, one last question. So I just want to say, if you're going to look at Cody as a champion, right, isn't it far more intriguing for him to be this undefeated champion and then there is a legitimate drama to all of his matches as opposed to just doing everything you can to build to a moment where there's really not as much intrigue in his defenses as there is in that particular moment, if that makes any sense. I think an undefeated Cody is just so much stronger as a champion than what he would be now going forward.
Yeah, it's another aspect that they cashed in tonight was Cody's first loss since coming back as well. So they must believe that it was the lesser of two evils was having Cody that they see as this chase has done very well for them and wanting to extend that chase. But to me, the chase is only as good as the capture at the end, and everything was in alignment. So now the challenge is to be able to not just replicate what you could do tonight, but make it bigger. And they're going to have quite the task because this is their most successful WrestleMania of all time. And that is what you need to replicate now for something bigger.
Thank you so much for the call, Andy. Let's go up next to Muggin. Hey, Muggin, what's up?
Death, turbo taxes, and Roman Reigns wins. LOL. My God. Yes. Okay, I just need to get this. I need to get this frustration out of my system before I could talk about what I did love about night 2. Anyway, everything was there. It was right place, right time, right build, right person, right everything, but the wrong outcome. I mean, I was buying on every new fall, and as soon as the Usos came in, I figured Owens and Zayn were going to come in to even things up, and that was very thrilling. And but. Mm-hmm.
It was thrilling because Sammy got his moment too. Sammy was they severed him and made him detached from the storyline, but with that haluva kick, he became a part of the takedown of Roman Reigns, which it makes this even kind of sadder.
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't win.
Oh, man, like, I mean, if I have to sit through another year of Roman on top of me, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because Raw's tomorrow. So, like, I mean, I know, like, the Raw after Mania has kind of lost his luster for the last couple of years. So, I mean, I wonder what Triple H is gonna do to force him to make it even hotter again. Because, man, like, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I really don't know what's next for both men coming out of this, because Jimmy and Jay need to get addressed over losing their tag titles on Monday. Because, I mean, if Monday's gonna end with Roman saying, "I'll see you on SmackDown, acknowledge me, bye,"
Yeah,
man, like they really like screwed the pooch on this one. Now that I got that irritation on me, now I can talk about what I did love. The Intercontinental title match was phenomenal. Arguably like Savage Steamboat level, even more so. I mean, man, like Drew, Sheamus, and Gunther, like they tore it up. And I like that like neither men won, because I feel like there's a much stronger story for Sheamus chasing Gunther to get the IC title again. And of course, Gunther's first WrestleMania. Man, he made a hell of an impression. And Bianca, Belair, and Asuka, they proved that they can overcome a horrible build with a great match, and that's what they did. And I love that Bianca went April to April whole year as champion. And also her entrance was great. And I also heard during the press conference that the girl that was dancing with Bianca, her mom passed away this weekend, and I'm sure
God,
yeah,
wow,
it sucks to hear, but like I mean, it was very, very nice of Bianca to to invite the girl and share that WrestleMania entrance with her. So that was very heartfelt.
Were there any other highlights from the press conference?
I know Heyman called out and chewed out Nick Hausman over the
yeah, we mentioned that.
Yeah, I've actually got some notes here from Neil Flanagan. So he was.
Thank you, Muggin, for the call.
Thanks, Muggin.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, so these are from Neil, that Nick Hausman had asked Roman and Heyman about a potential big change with the sale, and Roman just answered, "I was busy, so I don't really know much about it. Whatever happens, they're lucky to have me." Heyman dodged the question, and then when Paul Levesque was there, Nick Hausman again asked about the report and Endeavor, and Levesque's answer was, if he had any comment, he said, "Nope, I am here to talk about WrestleMania. I don't think we need to talk about anything past today." Which I'm really glad Nick Hausman brought it up.
Shout out Nick Hausman at House of Wrestling. Yes, always getting the microphone and asking the right questions. So
it is 100% the biggest subject you could possibly bring up. And again, it's not Paul Levesque's job to have to answer, but you do need to ask those questions 100%. And I'm glad that it was brought up. It would have to be brought up.
Let's go up next to Hansi. Hey, Hansi, what's up?
What's going on, man? How's it going on? First of all, great week of content, man. What's it called? You guys put up some good stuff. I'll say first about the stuff that I did like. I'll say that I know that in the last 10 years they have at least tried to put the Intercontinental title on the main card. I think one of the last real good matches that involved that title was a triple threat opener for WrestleMania 34, I think it was, in 2018, with Miz and Seth Rollins and Finn Balor or whatever, right? So, but because there's been some years in the mid 2000s and in the early 2000s where they weren't 2010s where they weren't using the IC title. So I would say that even though in the latter years they've at least incorporated the IC title in the last couple of years more so, I would still put this title match that we saw tonight in the category of Shawn Razor, Piper, Brett, Savage, Steamboat. That's how good it was, and I hope it's remembered for that, because I think Gunther has made it a lot more important. The only problem I have with it is I wish sometimes he didn't have so many repeat competitors. I actually wish there'd be more actually ex-main eventers that would try to go at him for the title, because at least then he keeps the title, but he also beat an ex-main eventer. So I actually wish he would have more variety of opponents, you know what I mean? So I thought that was the best match of probably the entire weekend for WrestleMania. But as far as the main event goes, I mean, same sentiments. What to call, like, I just thought it was the right time, and I know there's like more to the story. I'm sure. Listen, they're in a position where they can actually afford to do that, even though people are gonna be mad about it. But like, I thought it was a perfect night, and I thought the match itself was going to be remembered. It was a very classic match, like old school match. It was like the match I was looking forward to. I wasn't really looking forward to much on the card, anyways. But I'll leave you guys with this. Do you guys like? If Roman Reigns doesn't want to give him a title shot again, like he plays hard to get, do you guys see like the next part of the story for Cody to get it back? Maybe for SummerSlam if he wins Money in the Bank or something like that, because I can imagine he could do a lot with that. Because if he wins the Money in the Bank, he can cut promos about how he's gonna do it in advance because he wants another big time shot, whatever. So I don't know. Maybe that's where they can go with it. But again, I'm just kind of unmotivated by some of the decisions, because that was the one decision that I was looking forward to in the follow up. Like, even if Asuka and Bianca had a good match, I am not motivated to like know what's going to happen on Raw, because like the creator for women has not been the greatest. And I'm actually curious about what Rhea's going to do, because she's not been involved with the women division that much. That's why I think she's been a bit more hot or whatever. But anyways, the Money in the Bank question, and I'll leave you guys alone. Peace out.
Thank you, Hansi.
I mean, it's a viable way if that's what you want to get back to at SummerSlam. But to me, you're taking the secondary title opportunity pay-per-view, like after you just did the Rumble to go to WrestleMania, and now we're going to do Money in the Bank into SummerSlam. Like, it just feels as though it's like the lesser version of both, and you're redoing the story. And you're hoping that this is going to leave your audience just believing that the next time around, like whether you do it something where you can ensure that, like, certainly Cody should be having a transitional feud with Solo Sikoa in the meantime. And again, I would certainly argue that, he beat Solo, you're watching like Raw with the idea that, okay, Cody is, if he were to lose here, it's because he's winning on Sunday and sets up a title program. I don't know if I would have been so quick as for Cody to get that win over Solo Sikoa last Monday, when there should be the revenge program after tonight, and then he gets the first win over Solo Sikoa. Like, honestly, I don't even know why you booked that match on Raw if this is the finish you're doing, where Solo is so prominent, and Solo is going to be the one to get the credit for the win.
I agree.
And now you've beaten him once.
Yeah, I agree. They can explain anything, like,
of course they can, but what is something that you don't have to explain, that your audience just understands and wants naturally to come out of this? Again, these are relatively minor problems for WWE, but I just think I think we're giving too much in terms of just trying to justify what I think was just a bad call, when you had so much riding towards tonight and everything was lined up perfectly. Like, you did all the work that you're now stating we want to do again. We want to start from scratch and build this up again, when you had done all the work to get to tonight.
Do the work.
Guess so.
They did the work. Yeah.
Continue the story.
History will ultimately dictate whether or not tonight was a bad call. The way I think Austin's turn, was ultimately later determined to be a bad call. But we could definitely say that they'll have to do a whole lot to have all the pieces fall in place like it did tonight. So let's see. Let's go up next to Alex. Thank you for waiting patiently, Alex.
Hello, Alex.
Alex, going once, going twice. You might have fallen asleep, folks. So sorry about that, Alex. Let's go up next to Wes. Hey, Wes, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks. So I should preface this by just saying I kind of come in and out of WWE watching, and then usually watch around Mania time, but I wasn't upset with the ending, because I'm an AEW person and I didn't really ever feel Cody was right there at the end. So I just had a question, because obviously you guys follow. I saw comments comparing Cody not going over to if Bryan Danielson would have lost at 30. And from my reading of it, I never really felt this weekend that Cody was at that level of being over. I guess I was wondering if you guys could say he was, because if he is, then of course he should have. But
it's a different type of over out West.
Right.
Like Brian was very much like an audience's choice, and I think Cody got the audience, but he was always the company's choice too. If anything, Sammy was, you know, the Brian of this particular year. But you know, unlike
WWE was not doing this house show business that like in 2014 in the lead up to WrestleMania, like when Cody, when we consistently see these quarters that move with him, like I think there's more of an argument towards Cody and this year's WrestleMania buildup than there was in 2014 that generated a lot of great crowd reactions. But it, like Brian was not moving numbers that we are seeing in these last couple of months. And Zayn gets, you know, I'm not solely putting this on Cody. Zayn caught fire as well. And you kind of had both of these incredible baby faces that have helped spur up business and a hot story too.
Like Cody, I would say was more of the company choice that the fans actually wanted. You know, the fans actually agreed with this one. Unlike John Cena during his rise, unlike Roman Reigns during his rise, the fans actually agreed with the company and wanted what the company also wanted, which makes this all the more surprising. But yeah, any other
no,
thoughts?
that makes sense. I just wanted to thank you guys for all the hard work this week. It's really added a lot to the week, and I wanted to especially thank you all for bringing up the Giselle Shaw thing. I think it's just, I mean, it's awful, but I think it's super important that everybody in wrestling kind of says, no, this isn't right. And yeah, I just really appreciate you guys being ethical and moral with your coverage. And yeah, it was a lot of great stuff this week. So thank you guys.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, Wes. Yeah, we mentioned that we talked about the Giselle Shaw, Rick Steiner incident on our Supercard of Honor post show on the Café this past week. And I'm happy to see WrestleCon at least make a statement, Impact make a statement, several wrestlers make a statement. I believe we yet to hear from the WWE about it.
Yeah, so it's I'm of the belief he's under a Legends deal with WWE.
Well, he was at the Hall of Fame.
He was at the Hall of Fame, which they was there that night. And then later after the Hall of Fame, that's when Giselle Shaw put out, the statement of what Rick Steiner had said to her at the WrestleCon festival. So there was no comment from Rick Steiner. Like he has not addressed it in any way, but apparently was not welcome back at WrestleCon. Impact put out a statement as well supporting Giselle Shaw. And you know, I was curious to see on the NXT broadcast as well, like if the first time that Braun Breaker appeared on the screen and he's walking in the back, you could hear some boos, but then the match went through and like there were Rick Steiner spots that Braun Breaker did that, you know, certainly you might have questioned if that was.
I mean, you could argue there were the Scott Steiner spots as well, but
coming out and barking like that's Rick Steiner and. Right. But it wasn't met like with negativity, nor should it have been in terms of Braun Breaker. That is not fair for a Braun Breaker. That he there is nothing he could have done differently for that situation. So
same way we shouldn't be vilifying Shane McMahon for appearing tonight because of what his father did. You know, we have no idea what the attachment is. But
no,
for me, I just want to know the company's stance, because Rick Steiner, from what I gather, is still attached to the company, and just because they're simply leaders in the industry, you know.
Well, I think they will look at it as though it's somebody that has a contractual tie to you as opposed to just being the authority in professional wrestling. But to me, I'm glad Wes said that because it was the ugliest mark, the ugliest stain on this weekend, and it should not be one that is forgotten. We should talk about that. And, you know, certainly when we are going to be going into the next cycle, into the next Saudi Arabia show, like, let's remember here, like, why we talk about all of these subjects. And when we have someone like JC on that is stating like, would not feel safe going to Saudi Arabia. I mean, a lot of this all ties in together, but it was a horrible incident that occurred. I felt terrible that Giselle Shaw had to be subjected to that. And the fact that it was, you know, and to play out online where you're getting comments from people, like it's a very ugly way to have to address a situation when there's always going to be a portion of people that are going to come back at you and not be supportive. So yeah, that was a story that should not be forgotten this weekend.
Let's go up next to Richard. Thank you for waiting patiently. How's it going?
Hey guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So At the risk of sounding corny, my father said when I was younger that bad things usually happen in threes. First, Shane gets injured. Felt terrible. Like, it was great to see him back. No one knew it was coming. And I thought Snoop and Miz did a pretty good job improvising on the spot. Like, I don't know if they communicated to Snoop when they had the camera on Miz or whatnot, but I thought they did. They made the best of a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And then the Balor thing, my friend that I was watching with pointed out the staples. I didn't see it, but he saw it at the very end. Kudos to Finn for being able to finish that. Like, that throw with the ladder was brutal. He freaked it at him.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, what's the one bad thing that could happen to make it 3? And of course, I'm thinking they can't screw this up with Cody. But they screwed it up with Cody. I know I'm probably like the 1500th person that said it, but like, did Vince Russo get the book for the show or something? Like, what the hell? I don't understand how you just. I don't know. It's just I literally don't know what to say that hasn't been said already.
I think Snoop Dogg would have been WWE champion by the end of the show if Vince Russo booked it.
Oh, probably. There would have been like 10 more run-ins too. Yeah. Just people that weren't even involved in the storyline. In all honesty, when I saw Solo come out, I was kind of hoping, in the back of my mind, maybe we see something. There'd been I had seen rumors that there was maybe Christian doing something with the Edge Brood thing with Gangrel. Maybe they're going to do something with Dustin. Maybe Dustin's the one that isolates Sokoa or something. But I don't know. I'm going. It's really late, guys.
I know. I can tell you're pretty much in bed right now.
Oh no, I'm on the couch. I'm just trying to do something somewhere quiet where the kids won't wake up.
We're glad you're comfortable because you had to wait a while to get on, but we appreciate your thoughts and a lot of people feel dejected. So yeah.
One last thing, real quick. I find it interesting lately. Their video packages on a lot of things, they don't include guys that are working for AEW now. Like, they didn't show Cesaro or Macri on the Andre Battle Royal stuff, but they'll mention it on commentary, which I think is really cool. But the Brody Lee stuff, that, like, how do you, like, that's amazing. And I don't know if we would have seen that with Vince running the show. Not that Vince is heartless, although we've seen instances of that, but I just thought it was really cool. They did that. I just thought, if you're gonna screw up the ending of the match, you're gonna mess with the booking. At least you kind of did something like that with Brody Lee Jr. So,
thank you, Richard. Appreciate the call, and hope you get some good rest. Let's go up next to Eddie. Hey, Eddie, what's up?
Yo, can you guys see me and hear me?
We can barely see you, but we can hear you. I think
it looks like you're in the House of Black right now.
First time, long time. I left a voicemail, and thanks for my girlfriend thinks I'm a rock star for ending up on a podcast, my recording at least, for GCW on Thursday night, I think. It's my fifth show. I just got back from a little bit. No, but I just got back from SoFi. I'm in a Raising Cane's parking lot, so just wanted to chime in just to give you guys some live feedback.
Yes, please.
So first and foremost, what's up?
Oh, I said yes, please.
So yeah, so who had a more disappointing outcome, Ferrari or Cody Rhodes?
I'm sure Cody was as upset as Carlos Sainz was, probably by the end of it.
Well, I mean, at least there weren't like four red flags in tonight's match. So, God, that was a crazy
stacking that race after WrestleMania Night 1 was wild. That just staying up for that was worth it. But no, from a live perspective tonight, I felt like so a couple notes going back on the previous callers feedback about the Finn spot, actually let me back up the Snoop spot. There was no feedback given to Snoop. I feel like he just went in there and improvised. He's the MVP for that. He just literally went in there and then got physical with the Miz. And I think it's just that there was a lot of confusion with the crowd because we didn't know if that was a work or not, because I was speculating that Miz was gonna just parade around that, Shane couldn't go, and then here comes Austin or Rock. But that wasn't the case, and there was a lot of confusion with the fans about what is going on. And the guy next to me, like, this guy tore his ACL. That's what it looked like.
They said it was his quad in the presser.
Yeah. And shout out to Snoop for that. And then the Balor match was also a lot of confusion there too, because the cameras kept going in and out for the Jumbotron at SoFi. So we didn't know what was going on in terms of, what happened to Finn. I'm sure the broadcast caught that, but there was like 3 minutes where it kind of calmed down the environment because, we didn't know what was going on. I guess he got gashed pretty bad. And WWE stance with blood, I guess. Yep. But he had red paint, so I don't know why they went that effort. And then
I mean, it's policy, it's just it's hygiene,
Yeah, totally. But there was a lot of confusion for that too. And then lastly with the Cody match, the environment there, everybody was ready for Cody to be coordinated. That was the whole environment. The crowd was just waiting for it. They wanted it. You could just cut it with a butter knife. And when he lost, I wasn't at WrestleMania 30 or when Brock beat Undertaker. Well, it was kind of like that same vibe. People were just people literally stormed out of the arena the minute that the 1, 2, 3 occurred. So that was it was really interesting to see that, because it was traditional NWA Southern Wrestling booking, the same thing that the same formula Cody had in AEW, and for whatever it works with WWE fans. They eat it up, and they didn't pull the trigger, and it was really weird. I was like, I think this is it, and no, it didn't happen. So a lot of fans left there disappointed. And one last thing with the ads at the event, they boo the shit out of the ads every time. And my thought perspective from that is, great, WWE found another revenue stream, good for them. But if I'm paying $100+ to come to these events for each event, last thing I want to do is see ads at a wrestling show. It's just and I get it, but a lot of fans were also very disappointed with those ads, like the TurboTax and all that. It makes me not want to pay my taxes, even though I don't do that. I don't encourage that. But it's just it's disappointing that there was so many ads. But it was a great environment. First WrestleMania, and I'm tired. It was the show number 5 of this week, and
wow,
I'm as over it as you guys are.
Well, thanks a lot for the feedback all weekend long. We really appreciate it. And thanks for calling in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just one final thing. Do you guys think that there's some Vince influence in this WrestleMania booking? Because I know that John's kind of insinuating, a lot of people in the journalism world kind of feel like Vince is still back there being a puppet master, so to speak. And I'll get off the line. Do you guys, after this WrestleMania weekend, do you guys feel like that you could insinuate that there might be some Vince influence with how some of the booking finishes for this WrestleMania kind of occurred? I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts on that. But thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, he had a presence all weekend long. I think it's natural that people are believing that, they've said as much that, even Nick Khan, who went from stating he has no influence on or no involvement in creative to, he has ideas that he shares with everyone. And now it's more of a softened, Vince is throwing in ideas, but Hunter is the final say so. So they're not even publicly denying that Vince is throwing in ideas. So, it's left to your interpretation of what you watch, of what might be a Paul Levesque influence, what might be a Vince idea that's thrown in there. You're doing guesswork at that point. But is Vince, submitting ideas, they have said as much, that Hunter speaks to Vince, and he's got a wealth of knowledge to dwell from. But Paul Levesque has the final say. So that's like from their own perspective of it. They're not even stating that it's like this hard and fast separation that they were at least kind of positioning at the beginning when Vince came back.
Yeah, it's really hard for us to know unless there are like true hallmarks, like guy coming out with a ridiculous name, or we can only speculate, and it's really hard to know. But I imagine you're not going to be completely, rid of certain Vinceisms just because, he's not the creative lead right now. All right, we're running super late. We're 2.5 hours into the show, so we got to wrap this thing up eventually. So we're gonna cut the calls, and we're going to go to forum.postwrestling.com for a few of your written feedback pieces. John, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, we're just going to kind of like skim through these. So apologies for people that left longer pieces of feedback, but Cody from Maine thought night one was fantastic. The worst of the card was inoffensive while the big matches delivered, and says, regarding the main event, what would have been set in stone as one of the best main events in company history, they blew it. For what? Cheap shock value? Trying to replicate Naito's chase for Jay to be the one? 1,000 days? To be honest, it doesn't matter. This definitely isn't a wait and see how it plays out for me. One of the biggest fumbling of the bag moments in wrestling history.
Wow. Okay. One decision, eh? Like, will change people's, it was a big one. It absolutely was. Okay, let's go up next to Christian from San Jose, who says, just wanted to pop in to say WWE really missed the opportunity to have Snoop Dogg perform the AEW remix version of Cody's theme for the main event. Maybe next time. That is true. The real fumble of the night.
Chris from Scotland says, an overall excellent weekend of wrestling and a great time to be a wrestling fan. I'm hoping that we hear from the gentleman who called in last night saying we thought Drew was going to win at Clash. We thought Sammy at Elimination Chamber. Why is Cody different? Because he was right. All in all, an excellent WrestleMania, setting up nicely for the year ahead into the 40th.
I believe that was Andy.
Yes. And he asks, if not Cody, then who? Well, I would say that Jey Uso is one that people like. I think there's a lot of story there. And if you're looking at Jey Uso, that's not happening for a long time. And Seth Rollins, Seth is not as hot as Cody right now. Not even close. And Seth is over. Seth is popular, but you cannot
not as hot as Jey.
No, not at all. Like that to me is like, you cannot make that argument to me of Seth over Cody at this juncture.
Let's go to Cause, who says, I went to night one and I think I made the right decision. I can't remember the last time I heard such insane reactions for a WrestleMania. The main event seemed 3 times hotter than last year's. Michael Cole had a career weekend. I've never heard him call matches with more genuine emotion and believability. I really hope Vince doesn't come back on the headset. I know people will be mad about Roman retaining. I guess they were about to pull the trigger on a Cody win, saw the upturn in business, and got gun shy about ending the Bloodline storyline. They threw me a curveball. Hey, some unpredictability in wrestling is good, right? Curious to see where they take this.
Okay. Pete in Texas. I guess I'm a rare positive fan, but I was entertained both nights, as I don't believe complaining is healthy. Night one, we had big men flying, Ricochet. To be fair, listen, last night, everyone was raving about last night's show. So I don't think it's like fans that just find reasons to complain. I think it's,
genuine disappointment.
Yes, I think so. And people are like, that does not paint you as a negative fan to share your disappointment. I think it makes praise kind of empty if everything is great. So anyway, he goes on stating that, let's just skip here. Huge pop for KO and Sammy. And then the bloodline is not fractured yet. The finish leaves Cody still in the picture. Again, the sponsorship doesn't bother me at all. They're supposed to take their money, but crazy not to. All in all, I say job well done. Success in my eyes. From Rumble on, they've been on fire. Hope it continues.
And lastly, let's go to Shane from San Jose. She says there were some great matches over the last 2 nights, but the main event finish tonight reminds me why I no longer get invested in WWE or even follow the product that closely. They absolutely fumbled what they could have had with Sammy, and his brief involvement tonight bummed me out. WWE is fun to watch casually, and I always love your guys' coverage, but I can't get seriously invested. I've been disappointed too many times.
Well, we hope you were not disappointed with the last 2.5 hours for this post show. Oh my goodness. We gotta edit ourselves down. Thank you.
Last one here. Thank you, Felipe
from Chile. Yes. Thank you very much, Felipe. All right. That's going to wrap things up. Again, thanks to everybody that checked out our coverage this past week on the Post Wrestling Cafe and at postwrestling.com. We hope that if you are sampling us for the first time, you want to stick around. We are live here on the YouTube channel every Monday and Wednesday night and on the Post Wrestling Cafe throughout the week up at postwrestlingcafe.com. Video.postwrestling.com is where you can see our beautiful faces to add to the wonderful voices that we give you multiple times per week. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts, very, very popular outlet for many listeners out there, and follow at Way0937, one of the most clever tweeters out there, whether it's about a reverse Morris trust or pointing out that after we all criticized the decision, WWE was right to change Bronson Rex Steiner's name into Braun Breaker, which was definitely played out this week.
That reverse Morris trust tweet was really for an audience of two, and at least you liked it, so thank you.
There you have it. So we will probably be speaking with you maybe more than once on Monday. It is probably going to be a crazy day, so we will see. We will be back Monday night with Rewind to Raw. To be determined, obviously, what the news is, and if we end up doing a breaking news show during the day, we will do so if it requires. So plenty of more coverage to begin as we go into the post-Mania period. So all of that at postwrestling.com. Thanks to everyone on the site for your help this week. Way, thank you as always. And
thank you, John.
Well,
yeah, tremendous work as always.
Well, now we all get to sleep for a couple of hours before that opening bell and business starts on Monday, and we will see what the day has in store. Good night.